Lufia and the Fortress of Doom is a game I played once for about an hour 20 years ago. This is another of those Super Nintendo games I got introduced to through having SNES 9X and our original Xbox. Despite not getting very far, I always intended to go back to it eventually, and by the time I started doing this channel, I always had this in the back of my mind as a possible game to cover. I am using an emulator to play this game, as it was never released in PAL territories, it has never been re-released as of the writing of this video, and I ain't paying eBay prices for a US copy. So my goal for this save is to acquire every item in the game, and the game keeps track and lets you know at the end, and raise all of my party members to level 99. On starting a new game I have to name the protagonist. As I have said many times before, I hate coming up with names, and this guy has no canon name. We'll get to what I chose in a bit. Before the title screen and after naming the main character, we get an introduction about the time an island suddenly appeared in the sky 100 years ago. It would be ruled by 4 powerful evil beings known as the Sinistrals. Each one represented the powers of chaos, terror, destruction and death. Those last two are a little close on my liking, and whoever chose theirs first is right to accuse the other of ripping them off. Some of the strongest warriors in the world couldn't deal with the Sinistrals until 4 appeared who took the fight to them. Maxim, Selan, Arteia and Guy. The 4 warriors can't see in this place, and so Selan has to use magic to brighten it up. That's Maxim with the red hair, Selan the girl with light blue, Arteia with dark blue and Guy the blonde. The Fortress of Doom is freezing and suffocating with dark energy as the heroes are welcomed by the leader of the Sinistrals, Daos. Maxim demands he show himself, but Daos and the other Sinistrals are waiting above for them. I then gain control. This dungeon, along with starting me off with a team of seasoned warriors, teaches you how to get used to the game. The route forward is straight ahead, but off to the west is a room with a chest inside. It has a power potion, an item that increases your maximum HP. Considering my party are in their level 70s, it's not that essential. Down the stairs here into the basement, to the east I get my first battle against a Mad Wolf and Megatoad. The battle system is quite basic. You have your normal attacks, magic, items and defend. It all works fine, but I do have one large criticism in that this game is still clinging to that decision from the 8-bit days, where party members don't auto-target a new enemy if the one they're already aiming at is killed. So it's easy to have a lot of wasted turns. I have seen some people who don't mind this or even like it for making you have to plan out your attacks more. I just find it irritating and a time waster. I can go north into the centre of the room, taking on my first rock golems on the way, who will get Maxim to level 79 and Selan to level 78. Through that door are 3 chests. Mind Potion to increase intelligence for stronger spells, Speed Potion to increase agility, and Great Potion to increase strength. Then to the opposite side of the basement I entered from and up the stairs for a battle against a pair of Hydra. My party is so powerful for this intro that they annihilate everything. Guy reaches level 78 and Arteia reaches level 76. The chest contains a spell potion which increases maximum MP. Out the door to end up back in the starting room, fighting my first Ifrit, which looks even more threatening right next to the goofy Hydra. I run north up the centre of the room to reach the stairs going up. This is a walk straight north, but with a side area off to the east, which I face some Mad Knights on the way to. The little side room has a chest containing another power potion. Back on track north to the next room, which I then have to follow to the east before I go south into a mirrored version of the previous room. This time the side room is off to the west and has a chest with a spell potion inside. All the way south in this room is the stairs going up to the next floor. Now this next floor is a straight line north up some steps to the next staircase, but if I walk all the way around them to the north end of this room, there's a pair of chests. The first is a miracle, the equivalent to a Final Fantasy elixir, full HP and MP restore. The other is a second miracle. Back to the south end of the room there are 2 sets of steps to climb. If I took only the first set and went around to the north end again, I can reach stairs to a screen where I can get a free heal, but I don't need it. I just keep moving north, past these 4 statues and up the stairs. North through the door, and to keep going I just need to go north. But there are 3 chests to be found if I circle the outside of this pit in the middle. A miracle from the east chest, a miracle from the north chest, and a miracle from the west chest. And that's all the treasures to be found in the Fortress of Doom. I now try to cross this bridge in the middle of the room. Daos says I may cross, but Selan worries it could be a trap. Maxim shrugs off that concern, and when Selan tries to explain, Maxim tells him that Daos is testing them and they aren't to show any fear. Guy is the first to cross, then Arteia, saying he is powered by the hopes of his people. Maxim talks Selan into it by saying that they can still win as long as the dual blade he wields still has its light. He says it makes them all more powerful and assures her that they'll destroy the Sinistrals and restore peace to the world. The two cross and Daos is impressed, Selan telling the Sinistrals she's going to kill the shit out of them. Daos can sense a strange energy from Selan which he realises must be the human emotion love, which he has no comprehension of. It isn't spelled out fully at first, but Maxim and Selan are married and have a child at home. Through the teleporter to reach the top and to the north to meet the Sinistrals face to face. Maxim and Daos throw a few threats around, but Daos will have to wait as Gades wants to go first. Now to do something other than attack with everyone. Maxim and Guy still attack, while I have Selan cast Thunder, a very strong spell, while Artea casts Trick, which increases the target's agility so that they get more turns in before Gades can next act. Artea also has the party healing spell Valor for when HP gets low. He's got hundreds of MP, so I don't have to worry about running out. It's not long before Gades is defeated. We take a step forward and next in line is Amon. This time I have Selan and Artea cast Mirror on the party, which will reflect enemy spells. Amon likes to cast the Flood and Sunder spells, which target the entire party, which means for every party member that has Mirror, he gets an individual hit from his own reflected Flood, although he takes far less damage from it than my party do. So as long as I maintain the Mirror effect on everyone, Amon is probably the easiest of the Sinistrals and is destroyed in no time. Artea reaches level 77 from his defeat. Only 2 Sinistrals remain, and the only one between me and Daos is Erim. I use the same strategy I used for Amon, keeping up Mirror on the party. Not because Erim liked whole party spells, but because she uses powerful single target spells like Thunder, and not taking any damage from that is a big help. She too is defeated, getting Maxim to level 80 and Guy to level 79. Only Daos remains, who praises the party's skills before the final battle starts. Once again I have to start with Mirror. Daos has access to the multi-fire target spell Vulcan, which is especially devastating to Guy. It's strong enough that it even does decent damage to Daos himself when reflected. Not that it matters too much, as a single cast of Valor undoes all that damage. The Mirror strategy works as well as it did before and Daos falls, getting Selan to level 79, for all the good that's going to do for her. With the Sinistrals cornered, they still have one last trick left. They surround the party and try to gather all of their energies together for one massive spell. A spell that, if allowed to reach its full potential, could devastate the entire world. Maxim tries to interrupt it, but he needs the combined energies of the other 3 too. Selan says that it's too dangerous, but Maxim tells them they need to do it now. They give it a try, but the Sinistrals are still more powerful. Maxim pushes them to try harder, while Artea warns him that Selan is running out of energy and can't take much more. Selan brushes Artea's concerns aside and the party begin to overwhelm the Sinistrals. They unleash the energy, destroying all the Sinistrals at once and sending everyone but Maxim flying around. Maxim checks on the others. Guy is alright, as is Artea, but Selan's not doing so good, yet focusing more on the fact that they've saved the world. That spell wrecked her body, and despite having been speaking all of this, she claims that she can't anymore. She wishes that she could have been able to live in the new peaceful world she helped create and raise her child. That's when the bridge collapses and Guy and Artea are separated from Maxim and Selan. Guy says the fortress is collapsing and Artea needs to cast the warp spell, but Maxim and Selan are out of his range. Maxim has to tell the 2 of them to save themselves. They need to let everyone know that the Sinistrals are dead. Even with Selan gone, Maxim doesn't want to leave her alone. Guy has to convince Artea that there's nothing they can do now, and Artea says his goodbyes before he and Guy warp out. Like Selan, Maxim wishes he got to experience the new world he leaves behind. This is why I always remembered this game from the little I played. It was the first time I'd seen a game do this, start on a final battle, give you that taste of power, and then open the game on a downer. And after having played the entire game, I still think this prologue is its most memorable part, so I'm not surprised that the second game is a prequel starring Maxim's party. Doom Island fell into the sea, taking Maxim with it, the events becoming known as the Battle of Doom Island in history. 90 years later, the world is still at peace as the Battle of Doom Island passes from living memory, but it can't last forever. We open on the town Alekia, where nothing is happening. That is when our main character, a descendant of Maxim, comes running in. I've seen some just name him Maxim after his ancestor, but to avoid confusion whenever Maxim is brought up, in my desperation for an idea, I decided to make his name Maxim spelled backwards. However, I forgot that only swaps 2 letters in the name, and so our protagonist is named Mixam. He visits Roman, the owner of the inn. Even as young as he is, he makes a habit of adventuring into caves alone. While they talk, a young girl with blue hair comes in. Roman asks if she's alone and she doesn't answer. He can tell that she's new to town, so he asks her name. She doesn't answer still. But when Mixam introduces himself and asks, she tells him that her name is Lufia. He asks where her parents are. No answer. He asks where she lives and she responds by asking him to play with her. Mixam is confused by that answer, but Lufia insists on playing tag and the two run off as Roman wonders who Lufia is. 9 years later, Mixam is now one of Alekia's knights and reports to his fellow knights for afternoon training. But it seems his fellow knights have become complacent with the lack of monster attacks and decide a better use of their time is to watch their colleague Jack harass a woman named Yuria for a laugh, which seems to be a regular occurrence. Mixam is frustrated and storms off in the other direction. Another knight tells Mixam to relax, saying that it's peacetime and they should be allowed to kick back and slack off. But Mixam is always thinking about the next possible monster attack. He's told there hasn't been any monsters for 100 years, so he's worrying about nothing. He storms off again, stopping when he reaches the flower field where Lufia is. When Mixam says why he isn't training, Lufia says that the commander won't be happy about it. Once he makes it clear that practice was cancelled because of everyone but him, he asks what she's doing. Lufia found some Prithia buds and runs off to show him, Mixam not being able to tell the difference between them and other flowers. Lufia runs all over while Mixam struggles to keep an eye on her. She says that they're an incredibly rare flower that look very pretty when they bloom. Mixam teases her for having always been into flowers, to which Lufia remembers how she used to make him wreaths when they were kids. The two reminisce about how happy life was back then. Mixam then asks Lufia how she feels about life in its current state. She's pretty fine with it, there's peace and she gets to spend life with Mixam. But all Mixam can think about is how bad things were 100 years ago and how long the current peacetime will last. He worries what would happen if the Sinistrals came back without Maxim to fight them off again. Lufia tells him that he's a knight and he shares Maxim's blood, so that should be enough. Lufia decides they should head home and offers to make him some cinnamon tea, which Mixam says is one of her few recipes that's actually good. This winds up Lufia, who points out that it's very popular with the guests at the inn. Mixam accuses her of using magic herbs that change the taste of things instead of making it properly, pissing Lufia off even more and leading to her threatening to never let him drink it before it's her turn to storm off. Mixam calms her down, saying he was only joking and asks if she'll also make him her cinnamon pie, which he says is the best in the world. That ends up working on her. They head to the inn and Lufia tells Roman she's taking over the oven to make many cinnamon pies. When Roman asks what Mixam did to get her in such a good mood and Mixam tells him, Roman points out that he can never get Lufia to do any baking for him. Mixam can't believe it. Since Roman took Lufia in, he thinks the least she can do is bake him a pie. As they think about how it's been 9 years since then, Mixam overhears two customers talking about how the nearby kingdom Sharon has been attacked by monsters. The other guy finds it hard to believe, thinking the knights would have looked into it by now. But Sharon won't let the Alekian knights enter, so they'd have no way of knowing. And they're lazy. And so Mixam runs off without telling Lufia, ending up in her bad books again. For whatever reason, Roman doesn't actually tell her what's going on and leaves her to get pissed off. And this is where I gain control. First person I talk to is a kid who really knows how to lay the guilt on for making Lufia cry. The next person lets us know that her and Mixam have always been inseparable. Another says that Mixam should take Lufia to the town Lorbinia, which has all the newest popular dresses on sale. Lorbinia's on a different continent, how's he supposed to squeeze that in? Even the people in the inn who prompted Mixam to run out call him a dipshit for running out on Lufia. I can go upstairs in the inn and take one of Lufia's dresses from a wardrobe. I'm sure this will get her to stop being mad at him. I then take said dress to the shops behind the inn and sell it for 60 gold. This may sound like an awful thing to do to your sort of girlfriend but not yet, but look at it from my point of view. I needed to steal it for the 100%. I have limited inventory space and that dress doesn't give very good defense anyway. I also buy a dagger for 50 gold. It's a 6-point attack upgrade of the knife Mixam starts with. Also, apparently he only wears a single sandal. The cupboard next to the item shopkeeper is hiding a potion. West of the inn is a church, which is where I can save the game, revive KO'd party members and remove curses like in a Dragon Quest. But next to the priest I can see a chest and some stairs that lead to it. To the west, an old man tells me that to get to Sharon I need to go through a cave to the north. The next house on the west is hiding a revive in a cupboard. It also has some stairs leading to an underground passage that take me to the back of the church so I can open the chest for a Sweetwater, an item that reduces the encounter rate. The reason this path exists is because the priest hates rain and wants to avoid the risk of getting caught in it. Returning to the guardhouse in the northwest of town, one of the soldiers says I should check with the commander before rushing off to Sharon. I find a cloth helm in the cupboard here. That seems like a pretty bad material to make a helmet out of, but it is to a defence and Mixam has nothing else to cover his head with. In front of the entrance to Alekia's castle, a soldier says that the commander should be sleeping in the back room. So I go north to the castle. The first guy I find in the castle is that Jack guy who creeps over Yuria. In the northwest room on the ground floor is a chest containing an arrow, a weak damaging item. The commander is here, who is hearing of the monsters attacking Sharon for the first time. Mixam wants to take a squad to check it out, but the commander can't spare that many soldiers over a rumour. In the middle back room there's an escape on a bookshelf which teleports you out of dungeons. Another hides a swing wing, which will warp me to any previously visited town. The woman in this room is Yuria, hiding from Jack. This is no recurring behaviour, but still no one has dealt with Jack yet. And you can't help her, she's stuck there hiding for the entire game. I take the stairs up to the second floor. Into the bedroom in the northwest, steal a potion from the drawers. In the middle north room for another potion on a bookshelf. Up more stairs to find the third floor. The princess, Estea, is well aware of the rumours about Sharan and is worried for them. But she has no authority over the knights, so Mixam reassures her that he's going over there to check it out himself. She's grateful enough to give Mixam 100 gold to get started with. In the west is the princess's bedroom. I'm asked to leave, but first I steal a stuffed bear from the drawers, which I can use in battle to confuse an enemy. Also a bracelet from a bookshelf. In the northeast corner of the floor is a series of stairs going back to the first floor where I can find 3 more chests. Sweetwater, Antidote and Revive. Back to the third floor, I can enter the throne room and talk to the king, who also refuses to send out any knights until Mixam has a look first. Back into town and I leave through the south. Onto the world map. I get heading north, getting my first proper fight after a few steps with a pair of big newts. It can be pretty painful going from maximum cruise 200 plus damage from a normal attack to the very low double or even single digit damage in the present day. Not far from Alekia to the north is a small village on the way to the cave, Chatham. The rumours of Sharan have also reached this place, but then again it is closer to Sharan than Alekia. Inspecting the trees southwest of the fields has me find a mind potion. There's also a great potion in the western field. Rather than save them, I use them both to boost Mixam's stats. A couple people are worried about those they know in Sharan, the names Lila and Daniel are mentioned. The bookshelf in the northeastern house hides a smoke ball which causes an instant flee from a random encounter. That's about everything in here, so I go outside, and before I continue moving north, I return to Alekia for a bit of levelling. I hang outside Alekia because Roman lets me stay at the inn for free, whereas at Chatham I have to pay 5 gold. I faced my first Madshroom, an enemy that can actually survive one hit from me right now. That fight gets Mixam to level 2. I get going north again, fighting an alleged jellyfish on the way. North of Chatham are 2 cave entrances. I want the one on the west for plot reasons, but take the eastern one first. A simple walk west to a door leading to 2 chests, 200 gold and a potion. The rest of the cave is blocked by rocks. On the way out, Mixam reaches level 3. Now for the western cave entrance. So you know how in the previous game I covered Ease, I complained that I couldn't find any maps to easily explain my routes with? Well, huge thanks to the people at VG Maps and the one who ripped them, Flying Armour, because they have all of this game's maps uploaded, making my job a lot easier. I did cover up what the items are to keep some sort of surprise. The chests marked 2 and 3 are the ones I already opened. I start on the stairs in the centre west. To start with, I go all the way north and through this door to the northern room, where I can go all the way west to find a hidden item against a rock. Then I return to where I started and go northwest, up the ladder and to the stairs leading out near Sharan. I face my first spider in here, and these are the most annoying enemy this early on, since their bite attack has a good chance of poisoning you. It also brings up another issue with the battle system. When there's a group of more than one of the same enemy, you can only target that group, not individuals, making which one you hit random. A bit irritating when you have an enemy that can poison you and takes 2 hits to kill, and your character decides to spread the damage out instead of just killing one of them first to lower the risk. I do get poisoned, so it's a good thing I found that antidote earlier. The item hidden in the rock is a Revive. Near the exit to Sharan I end up poisoned again at low HP. These spiders are real assholes. I just have to deal with the poison as I leave the cave and end up right outside Sharan. Thankfully, poison does not deal damage when walking inside towns. Sharan has indeed been attacked, the first dying citizen I see telling me to hurry back to Alekia. The dying innkeeper tells me that they're still here, and the priest tells me to go help any others, before he dies standing up with his eyes wide open. The item shopkeeper says that the leader wore a black cape before he dies too. One tells me to hurry up and inform the king of Alekia before the same thing happens to them. I keep going north and into the castle. Through the front door and I go west to start looting the place. Look, they're all dead anyway. I'm sure they all want me to achieve my 100%. 4 chests here, all 4 of them potions. Then to the east for a room with another 4 chests. Awaken, Foul Water in case you want to actually increase this game's insane encounter rate, Antidote thankfully, and Sweetwater. Then it's up the stairs to the second floor. The dying person here tells me to hurry home. I instead go west to raid the shelves, a Foul Water and a Sweetwater. To the east are 3 chests containing 2 arrows and a stronger mid-arrow, with the drawers holding a Revive. Up more stairs to the third floor. I go to the room in the northeast corner for a series of stairs going down to the first floor. There's a tile here that's a different colour than the others, but I can't do anything with it just yet. So back up to the third floor to enter the throne room. It's empty except for a chest in the northeast that has a locked door in the way. Nothing else I can do here other than leave and head back home. The journey home is uneventful except for a big Newtai kill dropping a grilled Newt item, a very weak healing item that just clogs up my inventory. Back in Alekia, Mixam tells Roman about the monsters and then asks if Lufia is back yet. She is, but she's locked herself in her room. Roman telling Mixam that he should try to cheer her up. I go upstairs and Lufia is still furious and Mixam tries to explain that he had to check out Sharon, to which she says that he could have at least waited and had some pie, but Mixam says she can always make pie. She does not take well to the implication that the massacre at Sharon is less important than her cinnamon pies. Mixam says that is ridiculous and she tells him to leave her alone. I can get why some people may find Lufia annoying at first based on the way she talks to the main character sometimes, but as we'll later see, the entire party talks to each other like this. But maybe it's just the localizations of the time having to slash so much text when translating. I find that the simple language used to try and get all the important details in makes those moments harder to take seriously, so it just ends up amusing me a little. On the way out, Roman tells Mixam that Lufia isn't really angry about the pie, it's because he went off and put himself in danger alone. Roman, and even Mixam himself, don't understand his impulse to run off into danger. Roman considers he may have inherited his compulsive heroism from Maxim. Mixam tells Roman to make Lufia some hot milk and let her know that the Prithia flowers she loves so much are in bloom. Back into the castle, I talk to the commander who says he'll send a squad to Sharon right away when he can. But when he can means waiting for a meeting to take place and then waiting for everyone to agree to go. But before they can even have the meeting, they have to wait for the chairman to return, and he's in Lorbinia, which I've already stated is on a different continent. He doesn't get back until next week. Mixam gets fed up with all the delays and feet dragging and goes off to deal with it himself. I can tell Yuria about the monsters and all the killing they did, and she says that she's still more afraid of Jack right now. I really wish there was a way to help her out. Even Jack, on hearing about the monsters, still thinks his stalking is more important. I leave town once again. Mixam gets moving north again, but this time Lufia follows him. She gets him to admit he's going off to a dangerous place again, and, knowing that telling him not to won't work, she decides she's going with him. Then we go through all the usual, no, it's too dangerous. But it all sounds so much more childish with Mixam just repeatedly yelling, no. This is what I mean about the simple language making it more amusing than annoying. Lufia decides that Mixam is just so stubborn that she'll have to ignore him and come along anyway. Plus, she's still mad about the pie. Mixam's all, I don't even care that you're mad. Fine, you can come, just don't blame me if you get yourself killed. Lufia says that she can take care of herself anyway, and Mixam laughs at that claim. They get going, and Lufia starts piling on the guilt, accusing Mixam of not liking her and listing off all of her own flaws, saying she isn't surprised Mixam is tired of her. He comes back by saying that if those things were all it took, he would have been tired of her years ago. He finally drops the act and admits that while he can look after himself, he just doesn't know if he'll be able to keep her safe at the same time. He just wants Lufia to understand that, but she does not. She doesn't care about the danger, and she has the confidence that he'll be able to protect her that he lacks. Mixam says she might die. Lufia says she won't die because she knows he won't let her. When he asks if she always has to have things her own way, she asks if he only just realised that, which has Mixam laughing. That sealed it, and he finally gives in and lets her accompany him, with Lufia asking him to promise to never leave her. That whole thing was just another example of the writing in this localization. I feel if they'd used more complex wording or had voice acting, that whole scene would come across obnoxious and the characters unlikable. But instead, until you reach the very end of it, it comes across very cartoony, like an old sitcom married couple. Make it less simple, and instead Lufia would come across grossly possessive and manipulative, and the protagonist uncaring and patronising. I get to work on levelling Lufia a bit first. She is the mage of the game, low attack and defense but learns the good spells. I also return to Alekia to buy Lufia her own dagger, 9 points stronger than the small knife she starts with. I also give her the bracelet I found for an extra 2 defense. To the armour shop I buy some cloth armour to replace the dress Lufia starts with for 4 more defense. I then stock up on a load of antidotes because I know I'm going to be passing through that cave again. Now that I have more than one party member, groups of enemies can now be bigger. Mixam reaches level 4 and learns the strangely named healing spell, Strong. Lufia reaches level 2 from the next fight. She also starts with Flash, the game's weakest single target thunder spell, and Waken, which cures sleep. Back to the cave to Sharon, and there's an injured man now who says that his sister Lila was in Sharon Castle. He was attacked by the monsters in the cave on his way to check it out. Mixam tells him to go back to Chatham for his own safety. He agrees and gives me a key that Lila used to use at the castle. Back to Sharon, and with the key I can now unlock that door in the throne room and reach the chest containing 100 gold. There's a door in the west too, hiding a switch that I flick. Returning to the basement, I open up some more stairs going deeper. It leads to a prison where the King and Queen of Sharon can be found. After introductions, the king demands to know why there's Alekian knights in his country and why there's only 2. Mixam tells him he should be grateful considering the danger and he backs down, to which Lufia is impressed that he would scold a king. Mixam asks if Lila is there, she's the 3rd person in the cell. She's told that her brother, Daniel, asked them to find her. Mixam offers to take them all back to Alekia and the cell is opened. A bookshelf in here holds a great potion. I escort them out of the castle, but as soon as I end up back in Sharon's village, we get surrounded by monsters and the leader, who Lila identifies as the one who killed everyone. The leader recognises Mixam as an Alekian knight, but can tell he's different, as Mixam tells Lufia to take the others to safety. He tells her to go and get the knights as he confronts the leader, asking why he did this. He says he needs no reason other than for the sake of destruction. When Mixam asks if he thinks he'll get away with it, the leader's response is basically, I'm evil? He reveals that he is Garez, the Sinistral of Destruction revived, and the 2 fight. You cannot win this fight. Garez lets me have a few pity hits first before he responds by dealing over 500 damage to me. That's when Lufia shows up to help out. You. Woman. You. These people have such a way with words. He does seem to recognise Lufia though, as her just yelling at Garez to leave them alone actually works and they all teleport out. Mixam's alright considering the damage and asks how the king and the others are. They're all safe in Alekia Castle, but when Mixam asks about the knights, they're all still worthless, so Lufia had to return alone. Considering that fight was 3 turns, Lufia must be fast to run them all the way through that cave to the other end of the country and back so fast. But then they have to talk about this guy referring to himself as Garez. This brings up the concern of whether Garez was the only one to come back, or if Daos, Amon and Erin returned with him. Lufia doesn't even want to know, so for now they decide to return Lila to Chatham and go back to Alekia. We then fade out and back in on their return home, where Roman rushes to Mixam to check if he's alright. They sit in the inn and after hearing that Mixam challenged Garez, Roman asks what the plan is now. After they take Lila home, Mixam plans to journey out even further in search of Garez. Lufia asks Mixam to give her and Roman a moment alone. Before Lufia can get it out, Roman tells her that it's fine for her to go with Mixam. He tells her not to leave him, believing that those 2 found each other for a reason. Lufia worries about leaving Roman alone, but Roman says that he'll be fine. Lufia promises that she'll come back after everything is over and rejoins Mixam. Inside the castle, Jack is thinking about something other than Yuria, as he says that the King of Alekia has promised to help rebuild Sharon. Well, hopefully there were survivors we just didn't see, because otherwise the population would consist of just the King and Queen. Lila is on the 2nd floor in the middle back room, and Mixam tells her that he's taking her back to her brother. Somehow, in the other guest room, there's a 4th survivor with the King and Queen. Where'd she come from? One short trip north back to Chatham later, during which Lufia reaches level 3 and learns the shield spell, I somehow forgot why I was even going to Chatham in the first place and tried to go through the cave to Sharon again, getting a telling off from Lufia for bringing Lila here. I then walk right past Chatham again and check out this building west of Alekia. This place contains a teleporter that takes me to a hub of teleporters leading all around the world. Of course, the rest of them are unavailable right at the start of the game. The old man tells me I'm too early and to come back here later, at least giving me a free heal. I finally remember what I'm doing and take Lila to the east side of Chatham to reunite her with Daniel. Lufia gets all emotional watching their reunion and they approach the 2 to thank them for their help. Lila says that it's just a rumour, but she has heard that there's a person in the town Trek who knows about the Sinistrals. Trek is a good distance southwest of Sharon. Talking to the old man in the fields who is happy to see Daniel and Lila together again has him give me a speed potion. I save it for now. So he's back through the cave to Sharon again. On the way back through, Lufia reaches level 4. Back outside Sharon, I keep moving west across this bridge. A few steps later and I get my first new enemy of the area, the Anemone. This pair gets Mixam to level 5. I continue west through a small desert and then south across another bridge. Another new enemy, Earwig. Spiders are still sticking around though. I get moving southwest through this narrow mountain range and come out the other side to find the town Trek. The first sailor I talk to tells me that monsters have captured more ships that sail to Lorbinia. It's a pain sounds like a massive understatement. The first house to the west has a hairband I can steal, it's 2 more defense to Lufia. Upstairs is a chest, and that's the 2nd dress I've stolen in this game. Is this a hobby of Mixam's or something? While stocking up on antidotes, I also buy a few shrieks, the item that cures confusion. South of the item shop, the weapon shop has a power gourd to take from a shelf. This is a battle item that grants a temporary attack boost. I buy a 180 gold long knife to give Lufia 5 extra attack points and sell off a few bits of outdated equipment. The armor shop is connected and I buy Lufia a robe for 260 gold that grants 3 more defense than the cloth armor. There's a bar on the west end of town that sells 3 different ciders that all grant minor healing and a temporary attack boost in battle. I do like me some cider, but I don't drink it that often anymore. Can't stand the acid reflux I always get from it. A woman says that an old man at the port used to be a knight in the Guy Legion. Guy as in Maxim's comrade, who is still alive even into his 120s. Upstairs is a sailor who is fine with all the ship theft as long as his own precious Maberia is still doing fine. Everyone else has had their livelihood sabotaged, but he's still doing good. To the south end of town is the port. Going west takes me to the cellar of the bar where I can buy more cider from the old man. Underneath all these crates is a hidden escape and swing wing. In the southwest of the cellar are a pair of chests with arrows and a smoke ball. The owner of the Maberia is also on the port now, still bragging about his puny boat. It's the same size as him. There's an old man to the east who can sense an unusual energy from Mixam, asking if he's fought a strong enemy lately. He can tell because he's the knight who used to be in the Guy Legion. When asked if he knows anything about Gades, he's surprised to see someone so young who even knows of the Sinistrals. He's taken aback when Mixam tells him that he fought Gades. He asks why Mixam would even want to know more instead of fearing for his life. But once Mixam says that he's Maxim's descendant, I really made a mistake with that name. The old man has them follow him to the house I stole the hairband and dress from. He calls over his niece Ainea and tells her to escort Mixam and Lufia to the East Cave to meet the One. She worries because the One refuses to meet anyone, but the old man knows that he will meet Maxim's descendant. Ainea joins me and I leave town. Outside of town I get two new enemies from my first fight, Nettles and Baby Crab. To reach the East Cave I have to go east from Trek, making sure I go south around the mountains. I cross the bridge leading south and keep moving east across another bridge and facing my first boar worm. East a little more to find the entrance to the East Cave. Starting from the west I move east and south down two ladders, then east to a chest and south down the stairs to the next floor. Then south down another ladder and north through a door. Northwest to a second chest, then up another ladder to reach the exit. First battle here is another new enemy, Kobold. Killing them gets Lufia to level 5, teaching her Dew, the weakest water spell. One thing I really like in the menus whenever I go to heal is that it tells how many castings of a spell I have left based on my current MP. So at Mixam's current maximum MP of 22, he has 7 castings of Strong. The first chest has a pair of cloth shoes. I give them to Lufia for 2 more defense. When I get to the door on the second floor, Ainea unlocks it for me, so you couldn't get through without advancing the story at Trek first. The second chest has a swing wing for me, but not long after a team of 3 boarworms and a spider gang up on Mixam and kill him. Lufia manages to get them down to just 1 worm, but she's killed too. Full party deaths in this game also follow Dragon Quest rules. Appear back of the last priest you saved at with a chunk of your money gone, plus only the main character alive so you have to spend more money on reviving your dead party members. Only this time there's this ghost fairy thing that does it for you. That left me with just 27 gold. This is one of those RPGs where it's the early game that's the hardest part, where teams of the game's weaker monsters can still kill you. Next time I make it through the East Cave alive. There's just a single house on the other side of these mountains. Before I go inside, I run off to the east to find this sword in a field to swipe a short sword, a 20-point attack increase for Mixam over the dagger. Inside the house, Ainea tells the old man that she has brought him a descendant of Maxim. He asks Mixam to focus his thoughts on a single thing so he can read Mixam's energy, and comes to the conclusion that he is a descendant of Maxim. He introduces himself as Guy. That he's managed to keep his natural blonde hair at 120 something may be even more impressive than actually living to that age. "I'm over 100 but still kicking" is the most fate-tempting line I have ever seen in a game. He cannot believe Mixam when he tells him that Gades is still around and that he fought him. When Lufia sticks up for Mixam, Guy finds something interesting about her. Mixam asks for any knowledge Guy has of Gades. Guy says it hurts to try and remember that far back, so he's going to have to get back out there. After all, he's over 100 but still kicking. But then he takes 3 steps and starts dying. I don't think Guy's death was supposed to be as funny as it came off. With his last words he tells Mixam to find Artea for help instead. Artea is an elf, so he lives far longer than Guy would. He says that there's a person in the town Grenoble who knows how to find Artea. And he dies while telling Mixam to never give up. Then I see where he's buried. Did I just steal from Guy's grave? You can take the sword after he dies. But then again, that grave was already there. Did he have a wife buried there already, or did he dig his own grave ahead of time so that it was ready? Ainea asks what Mixam will do now, but all he can do is follow Guy's instructions and head for Grenoble to find out where Artea is. Mixam goes off and Lufia begins to follow until Ainea stops her. She tells her it's possible that only one of Maxim's bloodline can defeat the Sinistrals and asks her to stay close to Mixam and keep him safe. That support is just as important as any weapon. Lufia says that she will never let Mixam get hurt and seems to stop short of saying that she loves him. but Ainea asks Lufia to be careful herself as well. I leave Ainea at Guy's grave and raid his bookshelf for a great potion. I mean, he doesn't need it anymore. Asking Ainea about Grenoble has her say that it's west of Larbinia, but with no more ships going from Trek to Larbinia, we have a problem. Now for the journey back to Trek. There's still more new enemies in the East Cave, a giant bat. They get Mixam to level 6. Nothing else happens on the way back to Trek. I tell Ainea's uncle about the plan to find Artea. Strangely, we never tell him about Guy, he never asks, nor does he ask why we've returned alone without his non-combatant niece. He says that there are some soldiers from Larbinia here asking about the Sinistrals and says I should try talking to them. I go back to the port to talk to the knights. The green-haired one is the commander of the Larbinian army, Agaro. When he heard that Gades attacked Sharon, he came straight over here. When Mixam says that he has fought Gades, Agaro tells him to come to his camp so he can tell him more. But right then, another ship rides up and sinks the Larbinian ship. The demons get off and we get our first boss fight against 4 demon lords. Agaro also joins the party at level 5. He's the heavy hitter with no magical ability. This boss fight was where my first attempt at playing this game ended 20 years ago. I was actually a very shitty RPG player as a kid with no real patience to learn how to play most of them. I just wanted to explore the worlds, hear the music and see the stories. Solo Final Fantasy playthroughs that weren't joint efforts with my mum or grandmother consisted of me running from every fight and then spamming summons on bosses, praying that I win this time. So for this game, as I did with many RPGs, I basically ran from every fight until I got to this one that you cannot escape from. I got destroyed and then played something else. I also misremembered a lot of the game between Maxim's prologue and this fight. Everything to do with Sharon I forgot completely. I thought we went straight from Alekia to Trek. I also somehow forgot Guy died. I always thought he went off ahead and got beaten up by the demon lords at Trek, forcing the party to take over. It's strange how the memory works. As for this boss, the demon lords have 48 HP each and the inability to target individuals in the group is a huge pain here. I have Agaro attack because that's all he can do, Mixam attack unless someone needs to heal, and Lufia cast Do. Do is the most useful attack here since it hits every enemy in a group, so even if I can't target, all of them are still taking damage. Thing is, Mixam and Agaro are still spreading out their attacks as much as possible instead of ganging up on a single one. And the demon lords have Do, which hits my entire party and makes it harder to keep up with healing. If they all decided to use Do at once, I would be in huge trouble. After I kill one of the demon lords, they kill Mixam, taking out my only party member with healing magic. I decide to just leave him dead and try to end the fight. The second and third demon lords die quite close together. The fourth takes a little longer because they also have healing spells and it undid all the damage I'd done to it until it was the last one left. Mixam misses out on the XP as Lufia reaches level 6, as does Agaro. Agaro has never seen someone wield a sword as well as Mixam. When he learns that he's Maxim's descendant, he understands how he had the guts to take on Gades himself. Mixam tells Agaro that his goal is to kill Gades and the other Sinistrals if they've returned. Mixam fills Agaro in on the plan and Agaro allows them the use of his ship. That is, until he is reminded that the Demon Lord sank it. So the next objective is to find a ship. I use the great potions I've been saving up on Agaro. He's purely used for attacking, so he could do with the strength boosts the most. Since I have some more money now, I return to the armour shop and buy Agaro a cloth helm. I speak to the captain of the Maberia again. It seems his ship was stolen since the last time I spoke to him. He's heard it was seen on a small island to the west that can only be reached on foot by travelling through a dangerous cave. So it's time to get travelling north, around the western edge of the continent. I eventually make it to the cave to Maberia. This one will take a few images. I start by going all the way east and north of the ladder, then all the way west across the bridge to get this first chest, then northwest of the stairs down to the first basement, where I'll go southeast for 2 more chests. Here's where I get into another of my bigger complaints with the game now we're at a bigger dungeon. When in towns, you walk at quite a speedy pace, yet as soon as you enter a dungeon, you suddenly walk at half speed. I'm not sure why this decision was made, but the only theory I have is that since this game has such a high encounter rate, high even when compared to similar games of the time, your movement speed was slowed in dungeons to make it less obvious. Don't know for sure if that's the case, but it's my guess. The first chest is a potion. The 2 in the basement are a potion and a power potion. Power potion goes to Lufia to try and make up for her low HP. I then return to the first floor. I walk west and fall down this pit to land back in the basement between 2 teleporters. I take the northern one and follow the path it takes me to north, east, south down a ladder, and north through a door to the room with a waterfall. Said room has 2 tiles that will fully heal me between them. On the way back, Agaro reaches level 7. I also finally get a new enemy in the green orb. Back to the 2 teleporters, the southern one takes me back to the start. From the start I go east and north under the bridge to go down the stairs back down to the basement. I move south, picking up a hidden item in the pool of poison, then turn west and go through the door to find the final chest of this dungeon. Then I follow the rest of the floor west and then north of the ladder to find the stairs that take me back to the first floor past the pit and allow me to go west to get out of here. Mixam reaches level 7 from the next fight, learning Float. Lufia also reaches level 7 and learns Strong. That timing with Float couldn't be any more perfect, as otherwise I'd have no way to avoid the damage done by these poison tiles yet. But now I can cast Float and walk over them to grab the miracle in the poison. Through the door, this cave's final treasure is a Daze Ring. It increases defense by 8 and magic defense by 4, so I let Agaro wear it. The rest of the dungeon goes smoothly, with me lucky enough to not get any more encounters before I leave. I end up outside on the island the captain mentioned, and there is the map area. Monsters followed us out of the cave though, and my next boss fight is against 3 goblins. The goblins have 118 HP each. I start by throwing out the mid arrows I have. They're pretty good for now as they take around half of the HP of each goblin they hit. If only I could make them both hit the same one. After that, it's attacking, casting Dew, and healing when I can. Of course, while I can't target a single opponent, the enemies can, and so they gang up on Mixam and quickly beat him to death. Even when I kill one of them, they're strong enough that I can't spare a turn reviving him until the second is dead. And even then, he's almost killed the second he revives, but clings on with 1 HP. Soon after, I kill the final goblin, getting Agaro to level 8. The party realises it was the goblins who stole the map area, and they sail it back to Trek. I park the boat and go tell the captain that I got his ship back. He zooms off to the port and we follow. As thanks, he'll offer free trips to Lorbinia, and I take that offer. Lorbinia is southeast of Trek, southwest of Alekia, and directly south from that teleporting building. Agaro leaves the party for a while to request the Lorbinian army dispatched to fight Gades. When he asks what Mixam will do, Lufia interrupts and decides that they're doing some sightseeing. She wants to see those new dresses I heard about back in Alekia. Agaro says he'll meet with them in the inn later and sets off. To the east is a woman whose boyfriend, a sailor, has just left. She just loves hearing about his adventures. Southwest towards a huge shop in the middle of town, I inspect the back of the weapons and armour sign to find a mind potion. I give it to Mixam. There are smaller weapon and armour shops to the west, the weapon shop's bookshelf having a mid-arrow for the taking. I spend 360 gold on a staff for Lufia, 13 points stronger than the long knife. At the armour shop, 480 gold for a tan armour and 240 for a tan helm, both for Mixam. The tan armour being 8 points more defensive over the cloth armour, and the tan helm 3 points more than the cloth helm. Into the big shop and up to the second floor, I can buy some cheap jewellery here for Lufia, but the defence isn't worth the money. In the southeast is a chest containing some sweet water. Another shop up here sells stuffed animals. We've seen the stuffed bear, but the stuffed pig confuses an enemy, while the stuffed dog paralyses them. Onto the third floor, and Lufia is fascinated by all the dresses. Mixam tries to go along with it and show interest, until a dress Lufia likes is 5,800 gold. In this case, Lufia takes his side. But then she gets going again in the back room when the staff says that there's a sale on. That's when a kid charges past her and then sneaks off. But Mixam knew what was going on and demands he give back the gold he pickpocketed from Lufia. Lufia catches up in time to witness Mixam preparing to hand a child over to the army for punishment. Lufia can't let him go that extreme and says that they already have enough money. No, we don't. I just spent nearly everything on the new equipment. Lufia will allow the kid to keep the money as long as he promises to never do it again. Mixam thinks Lufia is too kind, but Lufia knows that he must have a reason to steal. I go to the inn, where the innkeeper asks if I had a run-in with Lu too. Everyone is aware of that kid. He's the son of the famous Professor Rael Shire. All he can say about him is that he's travelling the world researching something weird. The journey was too dangerous, so he left Lu at home unsupervised. Lu steals because Rael's business doesn't pay very well, and Rael doesn't send Lu any money anyway, so people tend to just let him do what he wants. And to think, Mixam wanted this abandoned, penniless child to have a military trial. Outside the inn, Agaro catches up with us. He wants to join Mixam on his quest to destroy the Sinistrals. They ask if the army will be okay without him. Turns out Agaro asked the army to take on the Sinistrals, but they can't be asked, so Agaro can't stand to be part of it anymore. That's both militaries we've seen now. I gotta say, that's a creative way to get the armies out of the way. Instead of the usual getting wiped out early, or no explanation just standing around while the party solve everything, just have them all be lazy. Our next destination is Grenoble, which Agaro says is to the southwest, so we set off. I stay outside of Lorbinia for a bit to build back up my annihilated wallet. New enemy is a big newt palette swap, the giant newt. Mixam reaches level 8 from that fight, and the next one introduces 2 new enemies at once, Ruzard and Rat. That fight gets Lufia to level 8. Once I have enough money, I buy a 450 gold tan robe for Lufia, 4 points more defense than the normal robe. I then sell more obsolete equipment for a 180 gold tan shield. This is Mixam's first shield for an extra 5 defense. Back to farming money. Next new enemy is the Mini Demon, a pallet swap of the Demon Lord. 6 minutes later, Mixam reaches level 9. I can now buy Aguro his own tan armour. One more fight outside gets me the 460 gold for a glass cap. 2 more defense over the hairband for Lufia. The next battle gets Lufia to level 9, teaching her Drain, which lowers enemy defense. That got me the money for Aguro's tan helm. I can now finally get going towards Grenoble. First, south past these mountains and the forest. Then a long stretch west past some ponds until the town comes into view, with a big cave slightly north of it. Just before I can get to town, Aguro reaches level 9. After that fight, I finally enter Grenoble. I talk to the first person I see and ask him if he knows anyone who knows about Artea. He says that an old man in the spring basement may know. East into the weapon shop, I can take a potion from one of the cabinets. Upstairs in the inn, a woman says that there is a treasure in the old cave that only women can find. We'll get to the old cave in a bit. The man up here gives me a hint towards items being hidden in poison. In the house behind the inn, a guy asks if I've heard of the rumours, and will only let me pass the 50 gold. I pay him, take a speed potion from his bookshelf and go down the stairs. Following the tunnel to the stairs going up has me reach this garden on the northern end of town where I can find a spell potion in these flowers. Slightly to the east are more stairs going down into this room. This place relates to the old cave, that cave a little north of town. There are several floors to it, but I only gain access to a new floor every 5 levels. Since my party are at level 9, that's just the second floor, the first floor being the entrance. The old cave is a dungeon with each floor filled with several treasures, including a main one that has no purpose other than to be brought back to this room and sold for a high price. There's an old man in here who I can ask about Artea. He says he knows about Artea, but before he gives us that information, he wants the Fairy Kiss treasure from the old cave's second floor. Since only a woman can get it, he hasn't been able to. Talking to the guy behind the counter, he says that if I find the secret map on that same floor, he'll buy it off me for 500 gold. That's about it for Grenoble. Most of the rest of them only talk about treasure hunting in the old cave. And so it's my turn to check out the old cave now. The guy on the first floor behind the counter tells me to enter the lift and choose the floor I want. Since I can only go to the second floor, I choose that one. I start by moving all the way south, grabbing 6 chests on the way. See that item marked 7, hidden in the poison? I missed that one for now. Then east into another room, grabbing 3 more chests and 2 inside the room. Back to the fork where the 4th chest was, I go east to the wall, getting 4 more chests before I take the southeast turn to find 2 more in the corner. Then back to the north and northeast into another room for the remaining 5 chests. The first chest is empty, the second has a high magic which restores a decent amount of MP. The 3rd chest is a potion, the 4th is an antidote. 5th chest is empty, as is the 6th chest. Other people have been here before, which is why some chests have already been raided. Thing is, I knew that the item in the poison was hidden there as I cast float to go grab it, but then I just forget and walk right past it. The 3 chests while going east to that door are empty, a potion and a sleep arrow. The 2 in that little room are the secret map and a power ring. I give that to Mixam for a 10-point attack increase. The chests on the east side of the room are empty, the float spell in item form, empty, and a pair of cloth shoes to replace Mixam's sandal. Now he can wear something on both feet. The 2 chests in the southeast corner are a tan shield that goes to Aguro and a dragon egg. These will be important, but not for a long time. Know why the Fairy Kiss can only be found by women? There's a sign next to the door. The door is wide open though, and there's no one here, so I don't know who's enforcing it, but either way, Lufia has to go in alone. One chest contains a dress. I didn't bring it up before, but there are still random encounters here, which is a problem when Lufia is alone and you can get ambushed by a group. The other chests are a hairband, heeled shoes, Fairy Kiss, and earring. I have Lufia rejoin the group and I can leave for now. I return to Grenoble, and one minor annoyance is that you have to pay that guy 50 gold every time you want to go back to the shop concerning the old cave. I give the old man that Fairy Kiss, which he claims to have been after for 40 years. He says that to find Artea I need to go to the tower northwest of this town. There's a man there who knows about Artea. He gives me a letter, as otherwise he would refuse to talk to me. The man was Artea's apprentice, so if anyone should know where he is, it's him. The woman behind the counter takes the treasures you're told to find, giving me the 500 gold for the secret map. I decide to get going straight for that tower, starting by moving west from Grenoble and across the bridge. This is where I find that weaker versions of the goblin bosses are now regular enemies. I then get moving north along the edge of these mountains. I get a new crab variant, the mini crab. Apparently I'm very bad at following instructions, as I then go east at the first bridge. That does not lead to the tower, it leads back to Lorbenia. I eventually realise my mistake and get moving north along the mountains again. Eventually I get close to the very tip of the continent and the tower comes into view. Since Mixam is already running low on MP, I give my spell potions to him. Soon after, I enter the northwest tower. I start by moving west and north, taking the first northeast turn through a door. I then follow that path around to the room with my first chest. I return to the start and go east and north through a door, then east and north through another to 2 more chests. Then back south and west to go north to the stairs up to floor 2. The first chest is a sonic ring, which I give to Lufia for 5 more agility and 1 more defense. The fight after gets Mixam to level 10, teaching him Drain as well. I get my first new enemy here in the form of the Red Magi. 2 fights later I face my first zombies too. I start using the sweet water I built up here in the hopes of less battles, but it really doesn't make any difference. A group of 4 Red Magi is a nightmare with their spamming of the spell Spark, hitting the entire party. The fight ends with Mixam and Lufia at 1 HP and Agaro dead. Lufia reaches level 10 though. I have enough items to heal everyone though, so I can avoid having to flee back to Grenoble. The other 2 chests on this first floor are a high potion, then 1 step in front of the second to end up fighting my first huge bunnies. The other chest is a high magic, floor 2 now. First I go south and east to get the first chest. Next back to the stairs and go southwest and up the stairs to an isolated section of floor 3. There I go all the way east, stopping in each of the rooms for a total of 4 more chests before I return to floor 2 the way I came. The first chest has a smoke ball. Onto the southern end of floor 3, the first 2 chests are a Mind Guard that temporarily boosts intelligence in battle, and a Power Guard. The third chest is a high potion. Then I'm told my sweet water ran out, having forgot I even used one for all the good it did. The fourth chest is a revive, then I return to floor 2. From the southwest of floor 2 I go all the way north, east through 2 doors, south past a turn east, then east at the end to grab 2 more chests behind 2 more doors. I then go back to that eastern turn and follow it to the stairs to the rest of floor 3. From there I go anti-clockwise around the floor, walking past the stairs to floor 4, until I reach a narrow room with 2 more chests. I then go back and take those stairs I walked past. First fight back on floor 2 gets Agaro to level 10. The remaining 2 chests on this floor are a Mind Potion used on Lufia and the Great Potion used on Agaro. A million fights later I make it onto floor 3. I get another new enemy up here, the Fight. No really, that's its name. In the room with the chest is a plaque telling me to overcome my fear. The chests contain a spell potion and a power potion. 2 fights later on the way to floor 4, Mixam reaches level 11, and now to floor 4. The aim is the room directly north of the stairs, but there's a pair of chests behind it, so I grab those first and then go into the room. Both chests contain mid-arrows. Then through that door to find a bedroom with Artea's former apprentice inside. How do you live here with all the monsters? I swap Mixam and Lufia's Sonic and Power rings and talk to him. He gets angry at us for interrupting his practice until we give him the letter from the old man. The old man helped him out when he was young, but despite that, he says he can't tell the party where Artea is, unless Mixam can defeat him in a one-on-one fight. After healing up, I accept his challenge. The apprentice has 313 HP. I start by using the sleep arrow I found a while earlier to put him to sleep. While he sleeps I use a Power Guard to boost Mixam's attack, then Drain to lower the apprentice's defense. Then 4 turns in, I get attacking, dealing between 30 and 40 damage. I manage to take 142 HP from him before he wakes up. He casts Fake on himself for a minor agility boost, but after that it becomes mostly a damage race. By some coincidence we both choose to heal at the same time too, but I'm dealing more damage and healing myself for more than he is. So when he starts wasting turns on potions that my very next attack invalidates, he can't keep up, and once the buffs and debuffs wear off, I finish him off with a mid-arrow. The apprentice can tell by the way Mixam kicked his ass that he is a good person, and tells him that Artea is in Elfreya, the village of elves. Humans are not allowed in without an elf helper. He says that to get to Elfreya, I have to go south and cross a desert. Then we get what I think is a typo. He says Elfreya is on a small island surrounded by 3 islands. That could be true if you look at a map of the world, but it makes more sense if he means an island surrounded by 3 towers. Even then, Elfreya is still miles away with at least 3 towns between the northwest tower and it. To help Mixam out, the apprentice gives him a speed potion that I then hoard. Out of the room, I can walk off his sledge on the north end of the floor to drop myself outside. I could head for the next town, but with my party now at level 10, I can access a new level of the old cave, so I return to Grenoble. On the way back, Lufia reaches level 11 and learns Deflect, which inflicts silence on an enemy. Back to the shop in Grenoble, and the man behind the counter tells me to find the silver wick on the 3rd floor in exchange for 1,000 gold. And so he's back into the old cave and taking that lift down to the 3rd floor. It is possible to grind yourself high enough to get access to all the floors right away and then steamroll a good chunk of the game with the items you get from the lower levels, but that grind this early on sounds horribly tedious. To start with, south to grab 5 chests, one of which is in a toxic pool. Then north through a door for 4 more, and through another door north for another 2. Back out that door and east to the next door. In the next room, southeast, getting 3 more chests and an item hidden in poison, west for another, then down a ladder for 2 more. East for another, north for another, and through a door to a room with 6 chests. Then north again into one last room with 5 more chests. In the first room are a high potion, a bomb which deals minor damage to all enemies, empty, sour cider, a new enemy in the Dracu Rose that likes to poison my party, then a magic guard which grants a large temporary magic defense boost. Into the second room for an empty chest, an escape, and 2 more empty chests. The side room to the north has an empty chest and a revive. Onto the third room for an empty, smoke ball, miracle in the poison, empty, sweet water, high arrows, float, high magic, and high potion. As for the fourth room, Brawn Breast, a 7-point defense upgrade over Lufia's bracelet, my first frog enemy, another joke armor in the apron, revive, a broadsword which is cursed so I ignore it, empty, and Brawn Helm. I think Brawn may be bronze under a character limit. Agaro reaches level 11 from a fight with 4 frogs. Mixam gets the Brawn Helm for 6 more defense over the Tan Helm. Then for the final floor, empty, Spike Shoes which replace Agaro's cloth shoes and grant 5 more attack, empty, the Silver Wick, and the Water Ring. This goes to Lufia to increase the damage caused by her water spells. Mixam gets the Power Ring back. On the way out, Mixam reaches level 12. I return to Grenoble and trade that Silver Wick for my 1000 gold. After selling off outdated and cursed equipment, I get going on the long journey to reach Elfreya. I get back up to the tip of the mountains where the northwest tower is and start moving around the west of the mountains. Once I reach the bottom, I cross a bridge facing my first spiked newt and cross another bridge going west. I continue west until I can cross another bridge going south. As a small village comes into view, Lufia reaches level 12. I then enter the village, Kiroth. To start with, the inn is to the west and I can raid the shelves in the back for mid arrows, high arrows, and a bomb. I'm not going to ask what that's doing next to a bed in the inn. A kid says that there's a rumour that the cave north of the village is haunted by ghosts. In the house behind the inn, an old woman shows her jealousy of a girl, Raina, who had just turned 10 and wishes they could trade places, wishing she could take her place and in return inflict her advanced age onto her child. I help myself to the old woman's plum cider on the bookshelf. Then there's the item shop where the shopkeeper says that he's closing because his daughter is ill. I inspect his shelves and take a high potion and sweet water, then go into the back to see the ill daughter. This is Raina, and then I realise that I judged the old woman too quickly. She meant she wished they could trade places so that the child was well and healthy and the old woman had her illness instead. She tells her friend, Mark, that no medicine has ever worked for her, but Mark says that his town has a ruby called the Hope Ruby that grants wishes and that he'll bring it to her. Raina knows of it, and also knows that it's one of the treasures of the Kingdom Medan. Mark thinks they'll just lend the priceless treasure to him if he asks, and sets off back to Medan. I talk to Raina as she worries about Mark potentially doing something stupid, to which Lufia teases her by asking if Mark is her boyfriend. Turns out he actually is. This 10-year-old has the dedication to travel alone from another kingdom to visit his ill girlfriend. Even if Medan isn't very far from here, it's still dangerous for a kid, so it's very impressive and puts most adults to shame. But you know how I treat gravely ill kids? I steal their toys. A stuffed dog from the bookshelf and a stuffed pig from the cabinet. I leave town and get moving east until I can see a castle. This is the Kingdom of Medan. The first person I talk to says that the Hope Ruby is inside the castle. In the item shop, while stocking up, I can now buy myself some mystery pins which cure paralysis. In the house east of the inn, both bookshelves have items, an escape and a swing wing. The owner of the house noticed Mark running off to the castle as soon as he returned from Kiroth. At the weapon shop, I buy 2 spears for 780 gold each and a mace for 600 gold. I also stock up on a few bombs. The spears are for Mixam and Agaro for a nice 14-point attack increase over their short swords. The mace is for Lufia, 8 points stronger than the staff. Armour shop next. 2 chainmails for 960 gold each, a wood shield for 360 gold, and a wood helm for 450 gold. The chainmails are also for Mixam and Agaro, 4 points stronger than the tan armour. Mixam also gets the wood shield, 2 points more than the tan shield, while Agaro gets the wood helm, 3 points over the tan helm. The house west of the church used to be the item shop belonging to Raina's father, but when she got ill, they moved to the more peaceful Kiroth. I head towards the castle to see Mark running out. It turns out that when the 10-year-old asked the king for one of the kingdom's prized possessions and tourist attractions, he said no. He has no idea what to do and leaves. I head into the castle myself. I root around in the flowers outside to the east to find an X-magic that restores a party member's full MP. I enter the castle properly and keep moving north through several doors to find the Hope Ruby. A knight tells me that throwing a coin into the spring and making a wish will have it come true. It's just a fancy royal wishing well. One guy says that it works, but a woman on the other side of the room has said that her wish has never come true. If I approach it, Lufia decides to make a wish. She tells Mixam to ask what she wished for, so he does, and she says she won't tell. Out of this room and to the east and north is a set of stairs going down. There's a very large basement, and should I follow the path all the way, I get to listen in on a conversation between the princess and the knight. It turns out that the knight has been pocketing all the coins thrown into the spring. He replies that, of course he has, it's a scam and that's his job. The princess finds the whole thing sad. Even the Hope Ruby is just made of glass. It seems Medan is 100% funded by those making wishes on the Hope Ruby. But the princess knows they can't keep it up forever and that Medan will have to rely on something other than a scam. Her own wish is for the Hope Ruby to be broken. Back into town only to see Mark run out of the castle again, followed by a knight. When Mixam asks what's going on, another knight says that the Hope Ruby was stolen. Mixam and Lufia refuse to believe that Mark could steal it despite the desperation he has shown to get it. So I head back to Kirov. I find Mark at the entrance, claiming that Raina has disappeared. She's not even supposed to be well enough to stand. The party tell Mark to wait here, but he gives away that he stole the Hope Ruby by saying he promised to show it to her. Lufia tells Mark that the ruby has no power, and Mixam decides to let him tag along. I get moving north of Kirov to this cave. The guy outside says that Raina went in there looking strange, so we go in. The Ghost Cave is the most complex dungeon we've had so far. From the stairs I enter from, I go southeast to find a chest, then east, skipping one ladder and going up the next. I do an anti-clockwise lap around this lower section, entering 2 small rooms for a chest each, grabbing one in the southeast corner, getting one in a side room to the east, and then going back up the ladder. To the northeast corner next for a room with another chest, and the middle north room for one more. Then it's down that first ladder I skipped, and southwest for the stairs down to the next floor. My first new enemy here is a trio of sword ghosts, the Sword Spook. The next fight gets me 2 more newcomers, the Will-O-Wisp and Crazy Pot. The Crazy Pots can be annoying, hitting the entire party with the Frost spell. The first chest is a high potion. The next battle is another new ghost, the Flame Spook. Thankfully, Lufia's Dew destroys them. The first chest in a southern room is a Monster Ring, which increases the random encounter rate when equipped. Fuck that. The second one is a Ghost Ring, which lets me deal extra damage to ghosts. I let Mixam have it while I'm in here and give Agaro the Power Ring. The chest in the southeast corner contains 500 gold. The chest in the eastern room has a miracle. Another new ghost to fight after that, the Ghost Male. This place has had the largest amount of new enemies than any other location so far. On the way to the next chest, Agaro reaches level 12. That chest in the northeast room has a Chain Cloth. It goes to Lufia for 3 more defense of the Tan Robe. The chest in the northern room has another escape. Then it's down to the next floor. I grab the chest north of the stairs I enter from and go down the stairs to the southeast into a short tunnel going east with another chest at the end. And then up more stairs to reach a section with another chest. The chest north of those stairs has a Revive. Next to that is a pair of recovery tiles. The next chest in that short tunnel has enemies that get Mixam to level 13 and teach him the poison spell. The chest has a wood shield, so Agaro can have one too. Up the stairs at the end of the tunnel, the chest has a high magic. I then go back through the tunnel. I next go down the stairs just northeast of the ones I came from, then east through a little tunnel to a room with another chest. I then take the northeast stairs here and go through another tiny tunnel to reach a second chest. The chest through the tiny tunnel is a high magic. Through the second is a dragon egg. I then return to the section with the high magic and take the southeastern stairs to an even tinier room with more stairs down to the bottom floor. In this room is just a small walk northwest to a chest with a speed potion inside. I then backtrack all the way back to the first floor. I go back northeast of the ladder and then south down the path between the ladders, east at the end, north through a door to find a chest and some stairs back down to the second floor. In the same fight where Lufia reaches level 13 and learns Bang, the weakest explosion type spell, a Sword Spook drops a Scimitar. This is a rare-ish drop and a very good one for this point in the game. It's 37 points stronger than Mixam's Spear. The chest next to the stairs has a Revive. Now I'm on a slightly elevated section of this second floor. From the stairs it's south to a chest, then east to another above this ladder, then north and east to a third chest, then back to the ladder and down it. After that I go all the way east into this room with 2 sets of stairs down into the bottom floor. I take the eastern one first. That first chest to the south of the stairs has a high potion. The one east of it is another high potion. A third high potion from the chest in the northeast. This section of the bottom floor has 2 chests, a spell potion and a power potion. Then there's 2 doors leading to a treasure each. The eastern door leads to a great potion and the western one a mind potion. This room also has a knight who has been injured by monsters, so I have Lufia heal him. He gives me the secret that things in this cave are not what they appear to be. Back to the second floor, I take the western set of stairs down to the bottom floor. No need for a map here, I go down the set of stairs southeast from where I enter. North of the stairs it leads to is a chest with a smoke ball, with a chest holding an escape to the southwest. Back to the previous room, of the 3 southern sets of stairs I take the middle one. It looks like a dead end, but the injured knight's hint was referring to an invisible bridge I can cross to the north. Across the bridge is one last chest containing a revive, and I continue north into the final room. Up one last ladder and I find Raina. Mark goes to her, but then a ghost reveals itself, saying that now the Hope Ruby will belong to it. Apparently it's been waiting for this thing for a long time and won't let the party stop it. The Phantasm has 657 HP. I start by giving Mixam a power guard, draining its defense and just having Agaro attack as usual. The Phantasm will either cast Spark or try to put the party to sleep. The combination of New Scimitar, Ghost Ring, Power Guard and Drain has Mixam's regular attack deal over 100 damage, just under a sixth of the Phantasm's maximum HP. Then I get stuck for a few turns with the entire party being put to sleep while it beats the shit out of them. With the way targeting works in this game when it's the enemies to you, the sleep status will drive you up the wall in situations like this. Agaro wakes up but can't heal Lufia before he's killed. Luckily a miracle will actually work on a downed party member, and as soon as Mixam wakes up, he and Lufia get confused. Okay, forget just sleep, all status effects are unbearable in this game when the enemy can just inflict on the entire party at once. I cure Mixam of it and have Agaro continue to heal him while Mixam beats the Phantasm's head in. Lufia gets no luck though. If she isn't confused, she's put to sleep. There's no greater joy in this game than when an arsehole enemy just uses their single target physical attack. Eventually, Mixam gets the killing blow and reaches level 14 with Agaro reaching level 13. Raina wakes up having no idea where she is. Lufia reaches the conclusion that medicine never worked on Raina because the ghost kidnapped her. But then surely that would only apply to just now when she was already sick long before that. I think she means the Phantasm was keeping Raina ill to bait someone into stealing the Hope Ruby to try and use on her. The Hope Ruby was broken during the battle, don't see how when Mark wasn't involved in the fight. But Raina is no longer ill now, so it doesn't matter. Mark decides that the only thing they can do is tell the truth to the people of Medan, apologise and hope they are forgiven. Lufia suggests he apologise to the princess, as she's the one who'll understand. Agaro says she might even reward Mark for breaking it. The party take the kids back to Kirov where they'll have to leave them now to go find Elfreya. Mark can give us some advice by telling us that there are elves living in the town Belgen, since we need an elf to get to Elfreya. It's southeast of Medan. Mark's father went there once and is aware of at least one elf woman who lives there. Talking to Raina's father has him thank me with a power potion. I return to Medan. In the town, the princess is coming clean to the citizens about the Hope Ruby being a scam. The reason the kingdom went with it is because Medan used to be rich from a gemstone mine. But once they cleared out that mine, the only solution they had left to make money was tourism, and so the Hope Ruby was fought up. But the princess says it was wrong, and that everyone in the kingdom should pitch in to make legitimate money. I mean, I imagine these normal people all have actual jobs already. Most of the town's population of 8 here do run small businesses. I doubt they were making much money themselves from the royal wishing well. I was on the princess's side until that part, back when it looked like she just wanted to end a scam. But now, under the guise of not lying to them anymore, she's expecting them to work even harder for less reward. I doubt she's going to see any negative effects from this. Of course, these people are either gullible or total sycophants, and they say that they are in the wrong too for allowing the royal family to lie to them without their knowledge. You know what? This country deserves bankruptcy. Since that old man there is out of Raina's old house, I can take a high potion from his bookshelf. This treasure can only be obtained right now. Leave and the old man will be back in front of it and it will be unobtainable forever. I talk to the princess, who says that Mark has apologised and the guards at the cave to the east have been told to let me through. I leave this kingdom behind to fall apart, never looking back. Slightly northeast of town is the cave to Belgen. This one is simple. I go all the way east, over a pool of poison, to reach 2 chests. Then back west a bit and north across a bridge, then east again to exit through the other side. Those 2 chests are a revive and a high potion. The guards are at the bridge still. Normally they will be blocking the bridge, but now they've moved aside. Out on the other side of the mountains, and the first ghost male I kill drops a light armour. It's 8 points stronger than the chainmail, so I give it to Mixam. I move south, quickly finding another village. This is Belgen. I'm stopped at the entrance by a guard until we're checked. People here are a bit on edge lately thanks to monster attacks. Once the confusion is cleared up, they let us in. Apparently, thanks to the monster attacks, a citizen named Jerin is being held for ransom. For some reason, Lufia blames the other citizens for it. Even the priest is upset that he can't do any more for her. At the armour shop, I buy a Brawn robe for 1500 gold and 2 sets of tan shoes for 840. The Brawn robe is 3 points more defense over Lufia's chain cloth, and the tan shoes are 2 points above the cloth shoes. Mix-Am gets the other pair. I also buy a 1400 gold Brawn armour to replace Agaro's chainmail. Had I not looked out on that much stronger light armour, I would have bought one for Mix-Am too. There's a cave entrance next to the church leading to what I think is supposed to be a warehouse. There are 2 chests in here holding a float and high potion. In the back room we finally get the rest of the context as to why the town is at fault for Jerryn's capture. When they mean ransom, they mean they offered her up to the monsters in exchange for not being attacked again, and will have to pay on top of that if they want her back. One of her friends says that she was chosen to be handed over, but Jerryn went in her place. When I tell her friend that I'll rescue her, she tells me that in the cave to the southwest of here is a key to the dais where Jerryn's being held. Her brother guards the key, and all I have to do is tell him that his sister told him to get the key. Another girl feels bad for Jerryn, but at the same time is glad it wasn't her chosen. Considering the situation and how everyone is fearing for their lives, it's only natural to feel some relief that it won't be you this time. It's not like she's actively celebrating Jerryn being taken instead of her. The shelves in the back hold a Mind Guard and Power Guard. The largest building in town has people debating on whether or not they can afford to pay for Jerryn's return. One old woman says that the dais that Jerryn is being held at is through a cave leading to an island to the west, but they locked said cave so no one can save her. The shelves in here contain a revive and a high magic. Now that I know my next destination is a cave to the southwest, what if I went east instead? I cross this bridge and another to the north as I reach a huge desert. I then keep moving east. I'm coming here a bit earlier than I should be, so the enemies are a lot stronger than I'd be used to until now. First up we have Orcs and Blue Wolves. These Orcs are strong enough that a single attack can remove a third of Lufia's HP. I guess to make up for her almost death, she reaches level 14 from this fight. The next new enemy in my journey through the desert is the Mudman. They're almost as strong as the Orcs, but can also heal other enemies with Strong. This time Lufia doesn't survive the fight. Next we have a palette swap of the Green Orb, the Red Orb. These have the bad habit of calling for more Red Orbs to show up, but since these are so easy to kill, it just means more XP for me. At the east end of the desert is another village. This is Serinagal. We're coming here early to buy better equipment slightly earlier than the developers intended. From the weapon shop I buy a 3000 gold axe and a 2400 gold rapier. The axe is 14 points stronger than Mix-Am's scimitar, and the rapier is 21 points stronger than Lufia's mace. I then buy Agaro his own axe too. Since he was still using a spear, he gets a nice 51 point attack increase. The armour shop next for a Brawn shield at 720 gold, 3 points stronger than the wood shield. In the house east of the shops, the shelves have a miracle and high magic. A woman in that house knows that Elfreya is to the south, but I need to pass through the Lost Forest first, which only elves know the way through, which is why I need an elf. An old man says that the island to the north is the Isle of Forfeit, a place where any items I sell find their way, so I never run the risk of permanently losing an item. Considering some decisions like the encounter rate that were a little behind the times, this feature is very ahead of its time for 1993. I don't know of many RPGs from around this time that had something like this. I swap some rings around, Agaro going back to the Daze Ring and Mix-Am getting the Power Ring back now that we're not in the Ghost Cave anymore. There's a chest in the weapon shop I can open for a high potion. I also stock up on some powerful big arrows and high arrows. The former do huge damage to a single enemy while the latter do a little less to a group. Then a load of status healing items, like the new Stone Cure. I decide to head back to Belgen to continue the plot, but Lufia still has a staying alive problem though. The cost of resurrection from a church is 20 gold multiplied by the dead character's level. On the journey back, Mix-Am reaches level 15. Back at Belgen and after resting at the inn, I get moving southwest like Jerryn's friend told me. Another new enemy in the Beetle. There's a split in the land here and we need to stay south. Next new enemy is a mummy. After that fight I can move southwest uninterrupted to find the southwest cave. To start with, in the first room all I can do is move southwest and get down some stairs. On the next floor down I go southwest and through a door to find my first chest. Then down the stairs slightly east of that door. That allows me to go northeast to find 2 more chests. My first fight in here gets another new enemy, Poison Rat. In every RPG I ever play, it's always the puny little poison rats I'm wary of, more than any huge dragon or the like. They just always tend to be infuriating little bastards. I'm glad I stocked up on so many antidotes. My first fight after going down the first set of stairs gets Agaro to level 14. That first chest is a high potion. Down those stairs and the 2 chests contain a smoke ball and float. Back to the previous floor, I take the stairs slightly east of the ones I just used. This section of the floor is a one-way winding path with 3 chests on the way and an item hidden in the poison. I then go back up those stairs to the previous room again and all the way northwest, through a door to more stairs back down. But this time I'm put on the outer wall of the floor, so I just walk south, east and north to more stairs to a new area. First fight down here gets me the new Killer Bee enemy. These have an attack that paralyses, so I hate them too. First chest down here is an escape, then the next two are a power potion and spell potion. The item hidden in the poison is a miracle. The rest of the route I mapped out has nothing happen. But as for the fourth floor down, I have all four cardinal directions to inspect. First, there's a scimitar hidden in the poison next to where I enter from. To the north is some stairs to a straightforward northwest corridor with two chests at the end. The chests contain a fly ring and revive. The fly ring lets the wearer deal more damage to flying enemies, but I don't find it worth bothering with. Back up the stairs and next I go west through a door. Two chests in here, high potion and high magic. The next battle gets Lufia to level 15, which teaches her the stronger version of the healing spell Stronger. To the east next and through another door. 3 more chests in here. Brawn Helm, Brawn Armour and Brawn Shield. The shield and helm go to Agaro. That just leaves the southern route. Down the stairs and through the door it leads to, there's a chest guarded by Jerin's friend's brother. He knows why we're here and moves aside, saying he'll take full responsibility if there's any trouble with the people of Belgen. The chest contains the Deus key. I then leave and make it all the way back to Belgen to heal without anything important happening. Once I've rested and sold off old equipment, I finally put one of my swing wings to use. Mixam is now level 15, so I walk back to Grenoble. This time the man in the shop says to go down to the 4th floor of the old cave and bring back a crown for 2,000 gold. So I head on back down there. Right where I enter there are 3 chests. I go south a little, then west to grab 2 more, then south to another. Then it's east for 2 more chests before I go back west and through a door to 9 more chests. From that room I head all the way north, getting another on the way to this door to a room with 4 more chests. Then I go all the way to the east of this floor, getting 3 more chests, then north to get another 3 and an item hidden in the poison. Those first 3 chests are a smoke ball, high potion and empty. The ones on the west are empty and a magic guard. The one south of them is empty. Then Mixam reaches level 16 and learns Statue, the petrification spell. Moving east, the chests are 520 gold and empty. Then into that southwest room, the chests are empty, Brawn Helm, Longsword which I give to Agaro for an 11 point increase over the axe, Light Robe which is 3 points above Lufia's Brawn Robe, empty, a Buckler for 3 more defense than Mixam's Brawn Shield, a Flame Ring which makes fire spells more powerful, Wind Heals and Light Armour. Now Agaro can have a set of Light Armour. Moving north, the chest outside the door is empty. Through the door is another empty, a miracle, empty and empty again. Now heading east I get a high magic, escape and long nail. Then north where I float, crown and broad rod which I will not be using. You may notice I missed another item hidden in poison in the old cave. I return to Grenoble and hand over that crown for my 2 grand. I then walk back to Belgen. Now to head for the Deus. I get going southwest from Belgen again, but this time when I reach for splitting the land I take the northern half. As I pass through the little gap in the mountains, Agaro reaches level 15. A little further west is the entrance to the cave to the Deus. I start all the way on the east. First I go west to reach a north and south fork. First I go south to find 3 chests. Back to the fork and north through the door, then west and down a ladder, west a little more and north through another door. Down a ladder in there for another chest and out another door to go west up a ladder and across a bridge for 2 more chests. Backtracking through that north room I go south down a ladder and southeast down another for 2 more chests, then west across a bridge, past a ladder and north under another bridge for the last 2 chests. Then it's up that ladder I skipped and west across the bridge I just went under. Down a ladder, then northwest up 2 more, then further northwest to reach the stairs leading out of here. Those first 3 chests when I turn south are a Great Potion, Mind Potion and Speed Potion. The Deus key is used to open that first door. Through it is the first new enemy in this place in the Mimic. The chest in the northern room is a float and the 2 across the bridge are a high magic and a revive. Lufia reaches level 16 on the way to the next chests. The 2 chests down that ladder are a Mind Guard and Power Guard. The last 2 chests are a Spell Potion and Power Potion. Then the rest of the journey through the cave is nothing noteworthy. I end up outside on the other side of the mountain. I get travelling west, facing my first San Rose, a palace up of the Dracu Rose. Continuing west and across a bridge to reach the Deus. In front are 2 guards stopping me from going further, but the party can see Jerin behind them. Lufia can't believe that they are doing this to a child, but Agaro points out that she is not a child, she's half-elf. She only looks so young because they age slower. Either way, they can't just leave her like this. Lufia suggests beating up the guards and taking her, but Mixam says that then they'll just do the same to another innocent person. They have to stop the cause for the ransoms in the first place. There's a pair of pots here to recover HP and MP, and a priest so I don't have to go back through the cave whenever I want to save. We go to leave but are surprised by a scream. A monster flies in above Jerin and swoops off with her. The guards say that the monster flew to the North Tower and that maybe I could find Jerrin on the top floor there. Back on the world map, I just get travelling north and the North Tower isn't very far away. This dungeon is one big teleporter maze. To start with, I take the teleporter in front of me to teleport past this fence, then all the way north and up these stairs. On the second floor, I then take the stairs to the southeast to a room with 7 chests. When you get to the second floor, you will see tiles of a different colour. These mark which tiles on the third floor are breakable and will drop you back here. Those chests on the third floor are a revive, then I get interrupted by this dungeon's first new enemy, the Archer, then a mystery pin, stone cure, shriek, high potion, a straw man as the next new enemy, an antidote, Mixam reaching level 17 and an awaken, then back down to the first floor. I go to the northeast room and take the teleporter there to the northwest room so I can go up the stairs. The second floor is all the way south, east and north to more stairs with a chest on the way. Then on the third floor a series of small rooms with just stairs to climb. The chest has a flash ring which increases the damage dealt with lightning spells. I let Lufia wear it for now. The next battle introduces a skeleton enemy, and just before the stairs up to the third floor is the Nightmare. Then up a few sets of stairs to the top floor which is covered in teleporters. First to the teleporter in the centre west to a chest, then the first one to the northeast from that one leading to a few of those raised platforms leading to another chest. Then the centre east teleporter to warp across more raised platforms to reach the end of this dungeon. That first chest is a miracle, as is the second. On the way to the centre east teleporter, Agaro reaches level 16. I then take those last few teleporters to reach the monster that has Jerrin. The monster says that Jerrin will be the key to Ammon's revival. Recognising the name of another Sinistral, we start a fight. The follower has 982 HP. I start with power guards on Mixam and Agaro and have Lufia cast Drain on the follower, then heal when she needs to. Those buffs and debuffs have Mixam and Agaro's first turn attacking take over a combined 5th of the follower's total HP. However, buffs have one of the worst durations before wearing off I've ever seen in an RPG, and the follower can cast Drain himself too. He also has access to Frost to damage the entire party, and Drowsy to put them to sleep. And he can heal himself for close to 100 HP by casting Stronger. Thankfully, when he does cast Stronger, Mixam and Agaro's combined damage outpaces it, so he's just wasting his turn. At least when Drowsy does land, Lufia is unaffected so she can cast Waken and I don't lose several turns. Apart from what I've already mentioned, he also has a few single target attacks that aren't worth describing. Despite having the most HP of any boss so far, we're pretty much out of early game hell by now, so he may actually be the easiest boss so far too. I'm never in any danger until he's killed. We check on Jerrin, who seems to be fine, and Mixam escorts her back to Belgen. After resting at the inn, the party say their goodbyes to Jerrin, but she wants to come with them instead. The party don't want to risk her life right after they've just saved it. Jerrin at least gives Mixam a miracle as thanks. She asks if she'll ever see the party again, and they both feel confident that they will. But that'll have to wait for next episode as, like with the Ease videos I just made, the Lufia coverage is also ending up far longer than expected. So I have been complaining a lot about quite a few gameplay elements throughout the video, but despite that I have been able to enjoy the game past those complaints. However, as I said, the game is at its most frustrating in the beginning, so a lot of my points of complaint can only get more tolerable from now on. I'm still enjoying the simple story, and our amusingly bitchy party is only going to get better in the next episode with the arrival of our 4th and final party member. Along with that, we have finally meeting Artea to look forward to and exploring the remaining 3 quarters of the world. Time for another visit to Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. Last time on our long journey to find an elf who can lead us to the war hero elf Artea and find out how to prevent the return of the Sinistrals, we saved the half-elf Jerrin from being sacrificed to revive one of them, but we turned down her offer to join us for her safety. Leaving Belgen, I get moving east across the desert again. Not long into this trek, Lufia reaches level 17. She learns a spell Absorb which drains an enemy's MP. Once I make it back to Serenagal to heal, I go southwest to cross another bridge. I go west to find this little house. There are 3 shelves to inspect in this house for a Revive, Sweet Water and Swingwing. The old man in the house says that the Lost Forest is nearby, but I'll never get through without a guide. We ask if anyone is available and the old man says yes, but she is a child. We still accept though and she's called in. It's Jerrin. Somehow she beat us here. Mixam, who in case you started with this video is the awful name I gave the main character, tells the old man that this isn't good enough, but there's no one else available so Lufia suggests trying to get through without her. Surely they can find a way through the forest themselves. But only elves know the way through, even being only half-elf is enough. Mixam realises they have no other choice but asks why Jerrin is so desperate to join the party. She just wants to repay the people who saved her life. Mixam accepts and Jerin is so happy she hugs him, leading to Lufia wanting to rip her face off. Aguro tells her to calm down because she's just a child, to which Lufia points out that she only looks younger. I don't know about anyone else, but I never saw Jerin as having actual feelings for the protagonist. Most of the time something like it comes up, it seems to me like she's deliberately trying to wind up Lufia for a laugh, since she's seen how possessive she is. In this case, all the teasing results in her giving Mixam a high-speed beating. And now our party is complete, with Jerin joining at level 14. She mainly wields bows, and I equip her with a bracelet, e-ring, healed shoes and flame ring I had lying around. Jerin starts with 7 spells. Strong, Escape and Poison we've seen before. Spark and Frost are the weakest fire and ice spells. Stun cures paralysis despite what the name implies. Warp is a swing wing as a spell, meaning I can warp to any previously visited towns. Since Jerin is behind on so many stats, I give her all 5 speed potions I'd found until now. The old man here will also grant me a free rest. Now to the Lost Forest. Southeast of that guide cabin between the 2 mountains is a large tree that represents the forest. In here, Jerin will tell me which way to go. It's a bit like the Lost Woods screen in Zelda. Take the right directions or you aren't going anywhere. First east, then south, west and south again to get out on the other side. There's another cabin out here granting me another place for a free heal. The good thing about Jerin's bows is that when you target a group, she will hit every enemy in that group. This is the only attack that isn't a spell or item to do so. Jerin reaches level 15 from this fight. East of the cabin is the entrance to a tunnel. I go into the building, pass through only to see an old man who tells me that there are 3 towers ahead, all 3 together hiding the way to Elfreya. He also says that once I get through here, to the north is the town Jennoba. So I pass through to end up on another island and move north. Just before I can enter Jennoba, I get a new palette swap of the spider enemy, the Tarantula. Jerin really makes dealing with groups so much better. Now, even if Mixam and Aguro are refusing to focus on one enemy in the group, Jerin is still making sure all of them are slowly being weakened. After that fight, I can enter Jennoba. The house behind the inn is hiding a bomb and high arrows on its shelves. An old man here says he's been trying to reach Elfreya for 30 years, checking out the nearby blue, green and red towers. In the order he listed them, the monsters get stronger and stronger. At the weapon shop, I buy Mixam a 4800 gold longsword to match Aguro. I buy a 1000 gold buckler for Aguro, a brawn breast for Jerin, and 2 1000 gold glass berets for the women. It's 2 points more defense than Lufia's glass cap. In the item shop, I can find a high potion on the bookshelf. Behind the item shop is a miracle in the dirt. Up the stairs in the middle of town, there's a mind potion hidden in a crack in the ground west of the house. The building in the middle is claimed to be closed, but I go down the stairs anyway to find a bar. An old woman says she'll share info on how to get to Elfreya if I buy her a cider. She says I have to collect a blue, green and red gem. They're in each of the 3 coloured towers around the 3 islands that surround Elfreya. If I buy a cider from the old man, he says that there's an inn on the 1st floor of the green tower, which is handy as it's the only tower without a town nearby. Once I'm rested and saved, it's time to take on those towers. First is the blue tower, a short journey southeast from Jennoba. From the entrance I go northwest to a room with a chest, then northeast to some stairs to floor 2. Then I go southwest through 2 doors to find another chest, then all the way north to read a plaque on the northwest corner wall. That chest in the western room is a blue ring, which increases attack by 10 and defense by 8. It's just a better version of the power ring Mixam has, so I give it to him. The power ring goes back to Aguro. The first battle here gets me another new enemy, Horoquin. Winning this battle gets Mixam to level 18. The chest in the southwest corner of floor 2 holds a sweet water. The plaque here is written in Elvish, so only Jerin can read it. It says to go to the red tower last. I then walk off the edge of the floor to land outside and start again. This time I go northeast into a room with a chest, and then northwest to stairs up to floor 2. Then slightly southeast and up the first set of stairs to floor 3, where I go across to the west for another chest. The chest in the eastern room contains a magic guard. Right after opening that chest I get another new enemy, Gargoyles. On the 3rd floor are my first Dark Elves, who look to me like super deformed Andy Bogarts wielding swords. Jerin reaches level 16 from killing them and learns Absorb. The chest up here is a high potion, then I return to floor 2. From the stairs I returned from, I go southwest to more stairs to another section of floor 3. There I take the stairs on the west to floor 4. I follow the floor north, east and south to a chest and some stairs to the top floor. Just before the stairs to floor 3 is my first palette swap of the jelly enemy, the Jelly Bean. The chest on floor 4 contains a high magic. Then up the stairs is a pedestal. There should be a blue gem here, but the pedestal is empty, so all I can do is turn back. On the way back down, Jerin reaches level 17, Then Agaro reaches level 17 from the very next fight. For whatever reason, it felt like I had more encounters backtracking through floor 4 than I did in the entire rest of the tower combined. Back to floor 3, I take the eastern steps to floor 4. This short path leads to a series of holes I can drop down, first to reach a chest on floor 3 containing a revive, then for a chest on floor 2 holding a green jade. I then drop down to the first floor and leave, returning to Jenova to sell and heal. Once I set off again, moving south, Lufia reaches level 18 from the next fight. I get a new enemy from the next battle, the Spell Snail. Then further south to fight my first Chompweed. I cross the bridge to the south and get moving southeast, having a random encounter for every half a breath I take. Eventually, I travel east enough to reach the Green Tower. First of all, that inn the old man mentioned is east of the entrance on the first floor. So from the inn, I go west and through the door for a chest. Then north through the door in the middle, going west of the fork and up some stairs into the northwest corner of floor 2, where there's a chest to open and a switch to flip. Then back to the first floor and up the stairs to the east to the rest of floor 2. In the same fight, Mixam reaches level 19 and learns Stronger, while Jerin reaches level 18 and learns Confuse. The one chest on the first floor holds a green ring, which adds 4 attack, intelligence and magic defense, 7 defense and 10 agility. I give this to Jerin. The next new enemy is another palette swap of the Demon Lord and Mini-Demon, the Dark Demon. The chest in the second floor corner is a magic guard and I turn the switch down. Onto main floor 2 now, and flipping that switch made some stairs appear around the north of the room. It leads to an isolated area of floor 3 with 3 chests. A broken red sapphire that Lufia suggests we leave because it's useless, a revive and an X potion. Dropping down to floor 2, I made more stairs slightly south of the last ones I used. They lead to 3 more chests on floor 3, a revive, X potion and high magic. Then back down on floor 2 in the southwest is a chest containing a swing wing. I then have to return to the switch I flipped to put it back. This gets rid of the north and south stairs on floor 2 and brings back stairs on the east and west. Both of them lead to the outer part of floor 3. There are stairs going up on both the north and south ends of this floor. First, the northern stairs take me to a knight who offers the secret of this tower for 100 gold. The secret is that I need to find the coloured gems and place them on the pedestal, not collect them from the pedestal like I assumed that old woman in Jenova meant. There are elvish plaques telling me the correct order to place the gems, so when that one in the blue tower said to visit the red tower last, it meant place the red gem last. As for the southern stairs, they lead to a room with more stairs leading up to the top. Another empty pedestal and I jump off the tower to exit quicker. South of the tower I go east across the bridge and start moving north when I can. The red tower comes into view but there's a village right next to it, Ruin. The population has a bit of a problem as the lake north of them that they rely on has turned poison. The cabinet in the inn has a high potion for the taking. Then the cabinet in this old woman's house in the northwest has a small knife. I'm just stealing a cutlery. She says that the only way to restore the lake is to bring back the water fairy. But that requires fighting a dark ghost and no one wants to do that. She once lived in the Red Tower, but the dark ghost drove her out. In the church, the bookshelves have a sweet water and a revive. Then in the field to the southeast are a hidden power potion and empty bottle. That may sound valuable to a Zelda player, but here they're worthless. Throw at a single enemy for minor damage. Finally, a shelf in the item shop has an emerald to pinch. This shop sells jewels and Mixam will ask if they can buy any sapphires. She has green and blue, but we need red since the one I found in the Green Tower was broken. One long back and forth of the difference, or lack of, between rubies and red sapphires later, she says she doesn't have any. They usually get delivered from the Medan mine, but they haven't received any lately, because that kingdom is doomed. So I cast Warp back to Medan. I don't have to visit the kingdom at least. North around the outside of the mountains leads me to the entrance to Medan mine. I go east and down a ladder for a chest, then south down another ladder, and northeast for a second chest, then southeast past a door for a third chest, then north through the door and then another one for 4 more chests. There's a man in here who says that an old man deeper in the mine may have a sapphire. The first chest has a foul water, the second a sweet water, and the third a bomb. Through the first door is the old man. He's been mining rubies for 70 years. We ask him if we can have one since we need one to reach Artea. He's old enough to recognise Artea of the Battle of Doom Island, and once he learns that the Sinistrals are returning, he opens a door into the back room for me. He comes out with a real, not scam, Hope Ruby. Not scam as in it's an actual ruby, not glass. He still doesn't grant wishes. This was once used in the castle, but he's the one who swapped it out for a fake without even the king knowing. For some reason. I still don't get why. It was still a scam whether it was a real ruby or glass. I then go into the back room for a diamond ring which makes items cost more when equipped, 500 gold, an opal and an emerald. Now to walk back to Ruin and enter the Red Tower. Of the 4 doors I start in front of, I take the far western one north to some stairs up to an isolated corner of floor 2 with 2 chests. Then back to the first floor and through the second door to some stairs down to a basement filled with poison water to float over to 2 more chests. Then back to the first floor again and through one of the eastern doors to take the stairs to the rest of floor 2. The first enemy I fight is the confusing Flame Freak. So, the legs and the fire hair are supposed to resemble a chicken, I think. But then what's the rest of it? Killing them gets Lufia to level 19 and teaches her Fright, a group targeting sleep spell, along with Aguro reaching level 18. The chests in the corner of floor 2 are a high potion and a red ring which grants 10 intelligence, 1 defense and 5 agility. The first fight after going back down the stairs gets Jerin to level 19. The chests in the basement are a spell potion and a power potion. Just before I head for the majority of floor 2, I face the first big meanie of the game. This fight gets Mixam to level 20. Now for floor 2. First I go a few steps north up the stairs to find another plaque. It says that blue is blue, green is green, and red is last. This teaches me nothing new. As for the rest of floor 2, there's a room just off to the east with a chest inside, then back to the stairs to go west and then south to a room with 2 more chests. Back to the stairs again, then south and east to reach 2 more chests. Then up the nearby stairs to a walled-in section of floor 3 with 2 more chests. After that it's back down to floor 2, south, west and north to more stairs up to floor 3. The chest in the side room to the east contains a float. As for the room in the southwest, Power Guard and Magic Guard. The ones in the east are a high magic and high potion. The chests on floor 3 are a smoke ball and a magic guard. Then to the rest of floor 3. Northwest from the stairs to get here are more stairs to a small section of floor 4 with the chest. Then back to floor 3 to go anti-clockwise along this narrow path to reach more stairs to floor 4 in the northeast corner. Then south, west and north to the stairs to the top floor. The chest on floor 4 holds a high potion. Then up to the top floor where I can see a ghost in front of the pedestal. The ghost claims to own the tower and accuses me of being sent by the Water Fairy. The Dark Ghost has 934 HP and a Thunder weakness. I start with my usual buffs and debuffs of Power Guard and Drain. When I don't need Lufia to heal, she's casting Flash. Now I have Jerin, I have an extra party member for healing and buffs instead of having to give up one of my main attacker's turns. The Dark Ghost's favourite attack is to keep casting water on the party. It's definitely a threat since it hits everyone and can even reach over 50 damage. He also has Ectoplasm which drains a party member's HP. But this guy doesn't have a way of healing himself, so he goes down rather easy. The Water Fairy returns to the tower and she's the one that appears when you get a game over. I still don't know the connection. With the Dark Ghost gone, she can now restore the toxic sludge near the red tower to its original form as a lake. I then drop off the tower since I must not place the gem on the pedestal yet. But I do go back in and return to the basement. With the poison removed from the basement, there are 3 new chests to open. But first, Lufia reaches level 20. The chests contain a blue jade, my 3rd dragon egg, and a miracle. I return to Ruin to heal, where everyone is happy to have their lives back to normal. I get going back to the blue tower, Jerin reaching level 20 on the way and learning stronger. So the game's translation really confuses things here, as the items to the pedestals are referred to as something different all the time. The old woman in Jenova called them gems, the party called them sapphires in Ruin, and the ones I picked up in the towers were called jades. And I have a green jade and blue jade, so I have all the gems I need. On the way back up the blue tower, Aguro reaches level 19. Mixam also reaches level 21. I get back to the top floor and place the blue jade in the pedestal. Now to climb back up the green tower. You can't actually get attacked by monsters inside the inn right after you've paid to be healed. That seems like it would be bad for business. It's new monsters I missed the first time too, Sandman. I get to the roof and place the green jade. That just leaves climbing the red tower. It's a decent idea for a set of connected dungeons. It's just that the issues I've complained about before with the high encounter rate and the slow dungeon walking speed make these second trips back up more tedious than anything else. It takes me about 20 minutes altogether for all 3, but it's a very long 20 minutes. I place the red sapphire on the pedestal and Jerin can hear a sound only elves can hear. She can hear a magic spell from Elfreya and the party teleported to a small island in the middle of all 3 towers. And the town we appear next to, finally, is Elfreya. Everyone here is fascinated to see humans, so much that I'm allowed to stay at the inn for free. In the flowers just west of the entrance is a spell potion. In the equipment shop I spent 4800 gold on a quilted silk. It has 4 more defense than Lufia's light robe. The house in the back of town has 2 chests, a speed potion and a mind potion. I go upstairs to finally meet Artea. He can read Mixam's energy to know both that he is here to talk about the Sinistrals and that he is descended from Maxim. The two have such similar energies that Artea thought he was Maxim back from the dead at first. And after the effort to get here, Artea says he can't help because he lost his sight back at Doom Island. Plus he's old. But he's supposed to be an incredibly long-lived elf. How old was he at Doom Island if only 100 years has him at the old 3 steps from dropping dead? He does suggest that maybe Maxim's sword, the dual blade, can help them. Mixam says he doesn't know where it is, so Artea says that it's probably at the bottom of the sea with Doom Island. That doesn't help much either. But Artea says it's the only thing that can defeat Daos and can only be used by someone with Maxim's energy. As for that bottom of the sea part, we heard about the world famous neglectful father, Professor Rael Shire, back in Larbinia when his abandoned son robbed us. He's the descendant of Alexis Shire who helped Maxim and Artea out 100 years ago. He may be able to help. His lab is in the basement of Odell Castle, which is on the continent to the south and over some mountains. He also gives me the key to the shrine that can get me there. Artea doesn't ask about Guy, nor do we tell him. And neither of them ever mention Selan, who was also their friend and travelling companion and whose death led to Maxim's death. They only ever talk about her husband. If I was her, I'd wonder if we were even friends. As I go to leave, Artea has a gift for Jerin, his bow. It's 42 points stronger than her starting elven bow. I am going to keep Artea's bow equipped on Jerin for a long ass time. Even when I get stronger weapons, the bow's ability to hit an entire enemy group at once is just too valuable. I will only ever replace it with another bow, and there's only one more bow to obtain in the game, which won't be for a long time. Before I go looking for Professor Shire, Mixam has gone past level 20, meaning another floor of the old cave. The man in the shop says to go down to the 5th floor and bring back the golden pawn, so down I go. First I head south, grabbing 2 chests before I go into another room containing 5 more chests. Back to the first room and east across the poison, grabbing a hidden item on the way to another chest. North next into a room with 3 chests. South through the middle door here and through the next room with 3 more chests. South into the next room where there's another item hidden in poison, and 4 chests nearby before I go to the southern area of the room and east for 2 more chests before going north through the next door. This room has 3 chests and I move north to the exit. 1 chest for that room and through the northeast door to the final room with 5 more chests. The first 2 chests are a smoke ball and empty. In that southwestern room I get a cursed luck blade and the new Maceman enemy, a pallet swap of the apprentice boss. Lufia's flash utterly destroys them. The other chests are an opal, empty, X potion and empty. On the way out of the room is the next new enemy type, rock, then sting after I leave the room. The first item hidden in poison is an X potion. The chest in the east of the first room is a kite shield, goes to Mixam for 2 more defense over the buckler. In the northern room I get a high bomb, high potion and empty. The room south of it has me get an empty chest, spell potion and revive. In the large southern room I get an empty chest, a second one, 500 gold, a float, a revive in the poison, a third empty and a power potion. First chest in the next room is a battle axe, going to Agaro for 40 more attack than the longsword. The second chest is empty and I face my first gold orc. The third chest is also empty. For the room after that, the one chest has a high bomb. Then in the final room, Lufia reaches level 21 and learns Bolt, the next level up from Flash. The last 5 chests are empty, a miracle, the golden pawn, a frost ring which makes ice spells more effective, and empty. Back to the shop in Grenoble to hand in the golden pawn for 3000 gold. Now I can begin the search for Professor Shire. Back to Elfreya, in the basement of Artea's house is a portal requiring that shrine key to reach. It teleports me to an area similar to the shrine I visited west of Alekia at the start of the game. The other building it leads to has me exit onto another island southwest of the Green Tower. Mixam reaches level 22, learning the stone spell. West from that shrine and across the bridge is another shrine. This one leads to the big room connected to the one near Alekia. But I don't really get the point of most of these, as you'll know the warp spell long before unlocking any of these doors. Back outside, Jerin reaches level 21 and Agaro reaches level 20. From the shrine I started from, I get walking southeast, making sure to stay on the east side of the mountains when they appear. After what feels like a battle from taking every single step, I move south between these mountains and across a bridge. A little further south is the small village Ranks. This place isn't very important, just a stopgap on the way to Odell. The first woman to talk to in here says that all of the town's men have gone to work in a tunnel in the mountains. At the equipment shop I spent 4200 gold on some half mail, 2500 on an iron helm, and 2000 on some spike shoes. The half mail replaces Mixam's light armour for 4 more defence, along with the iron helm granting 3 more over the brawn helm. The spike shoes reduce defence by 2 from the tan shoes, but give 5 more attack points. Behind this house in the northeast is some flowers with a power potion inside. Outside of town, you may see a cave entrance to the east. So I go north across the bridge, east to another, and then south to reach it. In the cave east of Ranks, I run north to the next room to take an escape from the chest. The old man just tells me to go to the tunnel instead. Said tunnel is southwest of Ranks. All of Ranks' men are in here working. For whatever reason, there's a strange power preventing them from going out the other side despite the tunnel being finished. That's because the small room to the north is filled with invisible walls. This is the correct way through, and I reach the stairs to leave the cave on the other side of the mountain. I get moving southwest and quickly reach the Kingdom of Odell. An old man says that there is a cave west of town with 4 entrances, but only one of them leads to the town Arus. At the weapon shop I buy Mixam his own battle axe. In the armour shop I spent 1400 so Agaro can have his own kite shield. Another person says that the town of amazing cooks, Lydon, is to the southeast. A house in the northwest corner has an X potion in a chest. The people downstairs in that house talk about the magicians in Arus, but no one can get there because the bridge leading there is broken. They say an architect called Piron in the castle should be able to fix it. Their cabinet hides a miracle and their chest an X magic. North to the castle next. To the east and then north are 3 flower beds, each one hiding an item. A speed potion, mind potion, and great potion. Inside the castle, the first person I talk to says that Piron is here to see the princess and designed this castle himself. I go into the back room where all 4 drawers hide an item. Spell potion, power potion, high magic, and another high magic. Artea said that Rael's lab is in the basement of the castle, so let's find our way there. Up the stairs to the throne room, Piron says the bridge to Arus collapsed because it was old. He can't repair it alone though, he needs his tools and his old crew, one of which is in Lydon. I go back outside and to the northwest corner to the stairs down to Rael's lab. 1 corridor later, I'm welcomed to Shire Lab 2. Another worker says that Rael is in Arus studying magic, so I need that bridge fixing. One woman says that Rael recently created the submarine. Inspecting the equipment in the southeast corner has me find a mind guard and power guard. Down the stairs, and the man down here says that the tunnel this teleporter leads to goes in 4 directions. North for an Arus cave, west for Shire Lab 1, south for some plains, and east to get back here. I take the teleporter and when I reach the 4-way tunnel, I go north to the teleporter there. I end up in an isolated section of the Arus cave with 2 chests. A yellow ring which grants 20 defense and 20 magic defense which goes to Agaro, and a stone cure. I go back through the teleporter and this time take the western tunnel to be sent to Shire Lab 1, otherwise known as Platina. I enter the main building, go up the stairs to the east and start inspecting equipment for a high magic, X arrows, gloom arrow and high bomb. This place is some kind of dock and I can't do anything else here for now. It's on an island just west of the island Odell is on. I walk back to Odell and get moving towards Lydon. I meet my first pallet stop of the spiked newt, the pin lizard. Then as I continue moving southeast, I fight my first blue meanie. I go across the first bridge I see and continue southeast under the mountains to find Lydon. Almost everyone here is some kind of chef. In the inn I take a swing wing from the cabinet. In the restaurant west of the entrance, the red-haired man is Piron's worker. He skips out on his dessert to go back to Odell. In the house in the middle of town I take a grilled newt from a shelf and a stone cure from a cabinet. We can review one cook's meal in here. Lufia is kind, but the rest of the party's ratings get lower and lower. Another wants a purple newt to complete his dish. Down in the basement are 4 chests, a chop block, miracle, small knife and fry pan. The cooking equipment are more useless joke items. With this place cleared of its items, I walk back to Odell. I walk back to Piron who tells me to go check on the bridge's condition while they prepare their tools. So outside I head directly west across the bridge, getting a fight with a ghoul, a zombie pallet swap. Winning this fight gets Lufia to level 22. There are 2 Arus cave entrances past this bridge and I go through the northern one. I start in the northeast corner. I go southwest and down 2 sets of stairs to find a chest. Back up the ladders, west a little and south to a second chest. West and down another ladder for a 3rd chest. Then south a long way and down a ladder to reach 2 more chests. My first fight in here is against the stronger mimic, the Mimicker. This fight gets Mixam to level 23, Agaro to level 21, and Jerin to level 22 where she learns a 2nd fire spell, Flame. 2 steps later has me facing my 3rd wisp, the blue wisp, and an armor lord, and then the next fight adds the crazy jar. That first chest down the 2 ladders is a half mail that goes to Agaro. The second chest is a glass robe, but it's not, the wrong name was written in it. It's actually a weapon for Lufia that's 22 points stronger than her rapier. Right after is a new enemy type, the Ice Snake. That 3rd chest is a stone cure. On the way to get the next 2, Lufia reaches level 23 and learns his 2nd water spell, Water. The next fight gets Mixam to level 24. The 2 chests down the ladder are a quilted silk for Jerin and a miracle. After getting those chests I lead the way I came. My first battle outside is yet another new enemy, the Giant Oak. After healing at Odell, I next move southwest from it, but staying north of the mountains until I reach another bridge. Then across it I go north until I find another entrance to the Arus cave. This time I start in the southwest. I go south down 2 ladders, then northeast to 2 chests. Then back to the ladders, I take the western path north to inspect the bridge. The chests contain another dragon egg and an X potion. On the way to the bridge, Aguro reaches level 22. I check out the bridge and not only is it still broken, it's puny. I don't know why I had to do this in the first place. Time spent on random encounters aside, this game is pretty well paced, but this check out the broken bridge to make sure it's still broken then come back part feels like padding. Back to the castle and I confirm with Piron that it's broken. So he tells me to meet them at the bridge later because they might need our help too. My first battle outside the castle gets Mixam to level 25 and teaches him the spell Courage, which increases the entire party's defense, Lufia to level 24 and Jerin to level 23. Back to the bridge and Piron tells me to find a way to the cliff on the right where the chests are so I can inspect it from there. This guy is trying my patience. So it's back to the bridge directly west of Ordell and through the cave entrance there. This time I start in the southeast corner. I go north until I can go west and down a ladder, then all the way west until I can turn north, grabbing a chest on the way, then west to where 2 more chests are and where Piron asked me to stand. Aguro reaches level 23 from the first fight back in here. A couple battles later, Mixam reaches level 26 and Lufia reaches level 25, also learning Courage. I am shooting up in the levels in this place. The first chest is a glass cap, and from the next battle Jerin reaches level 24 and learns Stone. The 2 chests at the end of this route are wind shoes and an iron helm. The iron helm goes to Aguro. And now that I'm standing here, Piron and his worker finally start fixing that bridge. With that done, they return to Ordell, but I still have to travel all the way back out to the southwestern entrance and around to the bridge again. One boring trek back around later and I can finally cross that bridge. Across the bridge and east at the first turn, then north, east and south to 2 chests. Back to the north turn is the path south, east and north to some stairs down to the basement. In that basement I go north through a door and over the poison to a chest. Then north through another and around to the stairs to the northwestern quadrant of the main cave. Up the ladder and south to the first chest, then west and up another ladder to the second. Back down the ladder, west and south to the final chest before I go back up that ladder and another to the northwest to reach the stairs that lead to Aris. The 2 chests are an escape and high arrows. On the way to the stairs, Mixam reaches level 27, Lufia reaches level 26 and Aguro reaches level 24, all from the same battle. The chest in the basement is a miracle. The door here is locked with a plaque next to it saying Le Fales La Falas. They assume it's Elvish, so they have Jerin say it. It doesn't work. Mixam tries next, still doesn't work. But when Lufia says it, it works and the door opens, Lufia considering that maybe it's because magic is her strong point. The first chest in the northwest is a revive, the second is also a revive. Aguro and Jerin reach level 25 from the same battle. The third chest is an X potion, and the next battle gets Lufia to level 5 and teaches her Boost, a spell that heals the entire party. The next battle gets Mixam to level 28 and teaches him Champion, a single target full heal spell. And then I can leave, happy to never have to do this dungeon again. It would have been just a bit tedious were it not for the pointless backtracking with the bridge. North from the exit is the town Aris. I go into a house in the west only to be told that Rael is not in. He's at the Tower of Grief, which is to the west of the village through a cave. If I go there, he had better not have moved somewhere else by the time I get there. An old man says that there is a ring-shaped island to the west, the result of Doom Island's fall, smashing through the full island that was once there below it. There's a high potion to take from their cabinet. When I go further north into town, Lufia breaks away from the party to look at the flowers. She calls Mixam over to see that this place has Prithia flowers in bloom. The other 2 talk with Mixam, while Lufia enjoys herself, about how she's enjoyed flowers ever since she was a kid, and how Mixam's known her all that time. She rejoins the party once she's had her fun. The flowers around the back of this house are hiding a mind potion. The old man in the house says that only magicians should be able to open the door, and that if Lufia did, she must have great skill. He urges her to meet the Elder in the Tower of Grief. In the equipment shop, I buy 2 red berets for 2200 gold. They go to the girls for an extra 2 defense of the glass beret. Before I go look for the professor, I gained so many levels in that cave, so I walk back to Grenoble. The man in the shop says to go to the 6th floor of the old cave and come back with the miracle gem. Counting this one, there's just 2 floors of the old cave left. The first room is a short trip northeast collecting 6 chests. At the end I take the western door north. This is a one-way path to the northeast with 4 chests on the way and 3 at the end. Back to the 2 doors and I take the eastern one. 1 chest on the way to the ladder going down, then all the way east grabbing 5 chests and an item in the poison before moving north for another. Back south and all the way west to the stairs with 2 more chests to grab on the way. The basement is a short journey northeast with 6 chests on the way. Up the stairs back to the first floor and all the way west for 7 more chests and another item hidden in the poison. The first chest is empty, then a high bomb, empty, high bomb and empty. In the next room it's an empty, Gladius, which replaces Agero's Battle Axe for 13 extra attack, Plate Cloth, which replaces Lufia's Quilted Silk for 3 more defense, Plate Mail to replace Mixam's Half Mail for 4 more defense, then I get another new enemy in Frogula. I assume it's supposed to be a Kappa, but it looks like a gross frog with a turtle shell made of hedgehog spikes. Don't like it. The 3 chests at the end are a Power Potion, Speed Potion and Spell Potion. Through the eastern door, the chest before the ladder is an escape. 2 new enemies at once with the Trap Harp and Axe Knights. The chests in the sludge are an X-Magic and X-Potion, with the hidden item being a miracle. Then further east for a Plate Helm, 2 more defense and the Iron Helm for Mixam, empty, then a battle against my first Harpies. Another empty chest and then north for a Revive. Going back west for an empty and a Hammer Rod, 10 attack more than Lufia's alleged glass robe. Down into the basement for a Power Gourd, X-Magic, empty, X-Potion, Knife Shoes which replace Agero's Spike Shoes for 1 more defense and 5 more attack, and Needle Heals. To the northern first floor for Mind Guard, Power Guard, empty, Miracle Gem, empty, empty, Blast Ring which increases damage from explosion spells, and a Miracle in the poison. Then back to Grenoble to sell the Miracle Gem for 5,000 gold. Now to walk back to Arras. Slightly west of town is the cave to the Tower of Grief. The cave is short and nothing special, apart from needing to float over some poison to reach the stairs back out. And once outside, a few more steps west is the Tower of Grief. First to the northeast to grab the first chest. Back to the start to go north through the door and up the stairs to 3 more chests. Then back to the first floor and up the stairs in the northwest to go south, east and north to the stairs to floor 3. My first battle here has a palette swap of the Nightmare, the Halloween. The chest contains a purple ring I give to Mixam. It increases attack by 10, defense by 11, intelligence by 4, agility by 2, and magic defense by 5. I get the Yeoman, a palette swap of the Archer. The 3 chests on floor 2 are a Revive, Dragon Egg and Stone Cure, then on to floor 3. There are 4 sets of stairs in the middle. First I take the northeast one to chests with a Revive and Stone Cure. Then I take the southwest one to chests containing an X-Potion, Lufia reaching level 28 and Agero reaching level 26, and a High Magic. The other 2 lead to the same thing, stairs to floor 5 where there are healing tiles waiting for me. Mixam reaches level 29 up here and I take the stairs up to the top floor. There's a chest containing a Miracle and an old man next to it. He's Flake, the Elder of Arras. He can feel that Mixam has fought a Sinistral. He can feel great ability in Mixam, causing Agero to say how impressive the old man is, and Jerrin to tell Agero off for being rude and interrupting him. But Flake is more interested in the one who opened the door leading to Arras. He tells Lufia that she has much potential, and that she's only just beginning to understand the extent of it. He calls forth some of Lufia's hidden magic power, and all it does is increase her MP by 10. Not really what I was expecting. Flake says that he can sense an imbalance, and that the revival of Daos and the other 2 Sinistrals may be soon. Then we finally get to the reason we're here and ask him where Rael is. He returned to his lab and we just missed him. I walk off the edge of the tower, not out of frustration, just so I can get on the map quicker and warp to Platina, and there he is up the stairs. He tells us not to touch anything because a guy touched something the other day and was turned into a frog. Well, joke's on him because I already touched everything earlier to rob him blind. After his long story of making a man suffer through several lizard transformations, he asks who we even are. The party have a hard time believing this guy could be a genius considering the story he opened with. So to prove it, he offers Mixam a tonic that would give him 4 arms, and Mixam declines because he's a fool. Why would you not have 4 arms? I could get these videos written so much quicker with 4 arms. Why would you waste that chance, Mixam? I fucking hate. I do like how Mixam is offered extra limbs, and for Jerrin he just has hair growth tonic. Lufia is incensed at the idea of her having competition if Jerrin has long hair too, and tries to get Mixam's backing by saying her hair would still look better anyway. But Mixam's like, fucking crazy bitch, I don't know. I'm gonna spend my life staring at your hair. But then Agero, who has just been shedding intelligence ever since Jerrin joined, is just like, hair? I don't understand. I love these dysfunctional fuckers and wish they whined at each other more. They eventually get back on track and ask for a submarine, which Rael has named Falcon. The Falcon can not only move underwater, but fly too. It's docked in the basement and he takes her to see it. He waits for the party to be suitably impressed, but it's dusty with chipped wings and a hole in the roof. Mixam asks if Rael has ever actually used it, and Rael asks how he knows, to which Mixam responds by saying that it's shit, just with kinder words. Rael will prove its use by giving us a demonstration and everyone piles in. Rael drives to this whirlpool and prepares to dive, to everyone's concern. He gets underwater, but after a short journey northeast, the Falcon starts leaking. He makes it to another whirlpool while everyone else is soaking and surfaces. So underwater travel is out of the question right now, but sea travel is still fine. He tells me to meet him at Shire Lab 3 later to fix that function and goes off on a ship. But at least we have a boat now, which is good since we still have 2 whole continents left to explore with no way to reach them otherwise. I swapped Gerrin's green ring for the flame ring since there'll be a lot of very flammable monsters on the sea. Moving west, my first sea battle is against the Lobsteron. Gerrin's flame ring enhanced flame spell annihilates most of these enemies, managing over 250 damage. The next battle has 2 more newcomers, the Psycho Clam and Red Star. Like Rail said, to the west is Shire Lab 3, or Carbis to give its actual name. The cabinet in front of the door hides a mind potion. I head down into the basement to make Rail fix a sub, but instead he tells me to go to the town Baku to bring back a guy named Cooper. Agaro tells him to do it himself. I don't know why Agaro waited until Gerrin joined to decide to have a personality, but I'm grateful for it. He'll just say whatever the player is thinking at times. Cooper is Rail's right-hand man and required for fixing the Falcon. Baku can be found to the west of Carbis. There's a place here that lets you heal for free, in which you inhale the fumes from burning oil. Okay, maybe she has scented oils, but I'm doing this while wedged between 2 heavy machines. So I could go to Baku now, but so many places have opened up to me. So many towns with treasures to collect and to add to my warp list for when I actually need to go there later. Travelling north, I fight my first killer eels. North of Carbis is the ring-shaped island that Doom Island smashed through 100 years ago. On the northeast end of the island is a town, Sochet. Even with Doom Island fading from memory, people still don't want to live here because it's where it landed. The church is in the back and its corners both have hidden sweet water and a revive. There's a cave under the church leading to a tunnel with a chest containing a miracle. Then downstairs the cabinets have a straw doll and gloom arrow. The old man says that there is a tunnel in the ocean that leads to the lagoon in the middle of the island. He means the whirlpools you see in the ocean when travelling by boat. That's all for Sochet and I get travelling west. Once I pass the island slightly, I get moving north. During this, Gerrin reaches level 26 and learns the spell Dead. Heading north enough has me reach the dais where I first met Gerrin. From there I go west a little more and keep going north. I find a small isolated island with another town on it. This is Frederia, a village made for Shire Lab staff. Then why is it not even in the same hemisphere as the other Shire Labs? There's no teleporters here, imagine that commute. Also, Shire can afford to have a whole town built and maintained for his employees, but can't afford to send his son literally any money at all so he doesn't have to steal to survive. One woman says that the town Erebus is to the west of here, but it requires more than just the Falcon's boat mode to get there. The flowers next to her contain a grilled newt. The flowers on the east hold a miracle. The inn costs 50 gold, but the party argue that it looks more like a prison cell than an inn room. In the northeast corner of town is Shire Lab 4, which is just a dock. Down the stairs and go mooching around for a revive and stone cure. Apparently, Frederia is the name of Rail's wife, who no one has ever seen. That probably includes Rail himself too, based on the way he treats his son. There's one kid who wants to go out into space. Space being a concept that neither Agaro nor Gerrin have heard of. This place has some very expensive weapons. First, a grand blade for 38,000 gold, 76 points stronger than Agaro's Gladius. Then from the armour shop, 2 10,800 gold carbo plates, a 10,000 gold clear silk, 2 6,000 gold carbo shields, an 8,900 gold carbo helm, and 8,500 gold carbo cap. I had almost 100 grand, now I have only 4,000 gold left. For Mixam, the carbo plate is 10 points more defense than plate mail, carbo shield is 13 more defense than kite shield, carbo helm is 4 more defense than plate helm. For Lufia, clear silk is 6 more defense than plate cloth, the carbo cap is 6 more defense than the red beret. I'll come back here later when I have some more money. Sailing west from Frederia shows me why I can't reach Erebus by boat, as the entire shore is blocked off by giant rocks. So instead I sail southwest of those rocks to the southern end of this northwestern continent to find another town surrounded by forest. One step after getting off the boat has me fighting my first Mega Turtles. They have high physical defense, but a trio of them like here reward you with a gigantic 3900 XP. The town they were delaying me from reaching is Epro. The house east of the entrance has a high bomb in its cabinet. The people here say that there was a huge earthquake recently that split the mountains to the north. The earthquake also created tunnels in the sea for us to use later. A house in the northwest has an X-Magic on the bookshelf. Then the flowers near that house hide a power potion. That's all to do inside the town, but I hang around for a bit more of that XP. Of course, there are still other enemies that can appear, like the Mad Wolf and Griffin. This specific combination gets me 4000 XP. Mixam reaches level 30 from the next battle, Luffy reaches level 29 and learns the Protect spell, and Agaro reaches level 27. Back on the Falcon, I sail south from Epro, passing a few small islands until I find another town on the tip of the southwestern continent. This town is Mars. All the buildings are on separate islands separated by an underground tunnel. In the armour shop I buy two 2800 gold silver wrists for Lufia and Jerryn. They are 10 defense stronger than the Brawn Breast. I then spent 7400 on a silver helm to give Agaro 4 more defense over the Iron Helm. You can take a cruise around the nearby islands for 20 gold, but I don't just yet. One person says that the nearby Isen Island has been taken over by pirates. Back outside, I sail west along the shore until I see a narrow river I can sail south down. At the end of the river is the Kingdom of Herat. First I inspect the cabinets in the inn for a plum cider and high potion. This place's biggest problem is that the king is a gourmet, but can't get any food that meets his standards lately. In the house behind the inn, a woman says that a purple newt lives in a nearby cave that is supposed to be really good for cooking with. I raid her house for a rod and apron. In the west of town, a kid says that the king has collected many jewels and a recent acquisition of his is something called Alumina. The back of the inn and weapon shop signs are hiding a mind potion and great potion. I next go north to check out Herat Castle. Into the castle, up the first set of stairs and into the northwest room on the second floor to find a guy getting fed up with the king's appetite. He has an X-bomb in his drawers. I wonder what that means. The northeast room is the chef's kitchen and he asks Jerryn to taste test some food for him. She adores it until he reveals that it has strange slime in it. Then Agaro gets up in her face to laugh at her eating slime. So Jerryn calls Maxim over to scold Agaro like he's his dad or something. Jealous of Jerryn having Mixam stand up for her, Lufia decides to get in on calling Jerryn Slime Elf too. After Lufia complains about not getting enough attention, the chef pretends none of that just happened and gets talking about the food again. Mixam asks why he's even cooking with slime to begin with. The king has been such a picky eater lately that the chef is trying everything he can think of to make a dish the greedy bastard will eat without complaint for once. Up more stairs and in the middle room, an old man says that maybe a master chef from Leiden is their best hope. The drawers here have a power potion inside. Can't do anything else here for now, so I leave. I return to Serinagal and sail slightly north to reach the town of Forfeit. We've heard about this before. Any items I've sold off can be rebought here. But I'm not here for my old items, I'm here to loot it for some new items. First, before I enter the main building, I run between the outer wall and the trees to the back of it where there's some stairs going down. Down here I take the tunnel south to end up behind the counter of one of the shops so I can open this chest for a mind ring, which grants 30 intelligence and 10 magic defense. I sell it right away, along with a load of outdated rings. I only have 5 pages of inventory and they were taking up a lot of it. Now into the building properly. Inspecting the item shop shelves get me a high magic and high potion. Up to the second floor, and a guy says that the shop here somehow makes you buy something even when you don't want to. The woman here says that only men could fall for such an obvious trap. The reason it works is because when you enter, 2 women essentially take you by the hand, drag you to the counter and will not let you move until you buy something. It's all junk, so I just buy the cheapest. As thanks for buying a 2 gold empty bottle, the 2 kiss Mixam, who decides he must shop here again, while Lufia says that they most definitely will not. This is where I got the idea that Jerryn is intentionally annoying Lufia, as she says that she's with Maxim anyway, and when Lufia angrily asks what she means, Jerryn tells Lufia that anger will cause her to get wrinkles. All this was to steal a gown and a ribbon from the cabinets. That's everything I wanted to do here. Sailing southwest of Sochet to the southwestern continent, I find a shrine miles away from any town. As I get walking west from it, I eventually see a tower wedged between 2 mountains. This is the Tower of Light, the tallest tower we've seen yet. And right away I drop myself through this hole into the basement where there are 6 chests. A high bomb, spell potion, power potion, stone cure, X potion and another X potion. Then back up the stairs to the first floor. I go through the door in the southwest to go up some stairs. I face my first Zooster and werewolf enemies, followed by my first Mad Lily. I then drop down an obvious hole in this floor to land in front of a chest containing an undead ring, which causes more damage to undead monsters. Then through another hole to end up back in the basement. Back to the first floor, I take the southeastern room and just do the same thing, falling through a hole to another chest holding a sea ring, which causes extra damage to sea creatures. Back on the first floor, Jerryn reaches level 27. I then go up the stairs in the northwest corner. On the second floor, I go all the way south and east into a room with a chest and then up the stairs to floor 3. Starting in the centre, I go south for a chest and then northeast into a room with 2 chests. Back to the start and north into a room with a 4th chest before I go up the northeastern set of stairs. The chest on floor 2 is a stone cure. On floor 3 the southern chest is a revive and the 2 in the northeast room are an X magic and X potion. On the way to the middle north room, Lufia reaches level 30. The chest in that room is holding another revive. On to floor 4. I start by going all the way south then west to go up the stairs to floor 5. East and north through the door, taking the west split to reach a chest, then back to the split to take the eastern one to the stairs to floor 6. Mixam reaches level 31 from the first fight and learns the Fright spell. First fight on floor 5 is against my first Terraquin, a Horrorquin palette swap. Aguro reaches level 28 on this floor and the chest is the next portion. Floor 6 next. I go all the way southwest and down some stairs to a narrow tunnel on floor 5 to go all the way north to the stairs to the northwest corner of floor 6 where there is a chest. Why do I write myself such long sentences? I then drop back down to floor 5 through the hole. The chest contains a miracle. Back down to floor 4, I go through the door in the middle of the room and go all the way north to more stairs back to floor 5. There's more stairs up to floor 6, so I take those. To the southwest, I go up the stairs to floor 7 where I can grab a chest holding a gloom voice, an item that causes instant death to all enemies. This means it's too good to use on any normal encounter, but bosses are immune, so it'll just never get used. Then to the middle north of the room through a series of stairs up to the roof, where there is a chest containing the Might Helmet, the best helmet in the game. I give it to Jerry for 27 more defense than the Red Beret. Then back down to floor 6 and through the door in the middle of the room. It leads to some stairs to a chest containing a power guard. One tile north of the chest is a hole. I drop down a couple holes to find the final 4 chests on this isolated section of floor 4. A large shield, inferior to the carbo shields I've already bought. A silver robe, 6 points better than Jerin's quilted silk. A plate cap and a great axe, 25 points stronger than Mixam's battle axe. That's all for now, so I leave. There is a locked door in the back of the first floor, but I can't do anything about it just yet. As I journey south from the tower across this bridge, I finally reach the town of Baku on the southern edge of the continent. Funny I mentioned the locked door in the Tower of Light, as the very first person I talked to says an old man had the key to it but lost it. And through that door is the only way to reach the town Linz on the other side. And in that town is a man named Clack studying Doom Island. The house that guy is in contains all 3 of Baku's treasures, an X-Potion, X-Magic and Revive. I talk to the old man I'm robbing, the Elder of Baku, and he says that the rumours about the Tower of Light key are wrong. He still has it and says we can use it whenever we want. Other people in town think the key has been stolen. It's hard to sympathise with the man in the inn saying that when near the Tower of Light you feel a cold shiver despite not being cold, when I was writing this and the first Lufia video and Street Fighter Alpha while having the flu. I remember I'm supposed to be searching for this Cooper guy. The man at the church says that he went off to inspect the 5th level of the old cave. That priest apparently once travelled the world with Rail, Cooper and Clack. Well, I know Cooper is in the old cave, but first I walked to Frederick to spend 15,600 gold on a cat whip for Lufia, 23 more attack than the hammer rod. Then after selling off a lot of old stuff, 11,000 gold each for 2 pairs of sword shoes for Mixam and Aguro, 4 defense and 10 attack more than the spike shoes, and 11,400 gold for some cat heals for Jerin, 5 attack and 1 defense more than the needle heals. I warp to Grenoble and go down to the 5th floor of the old cave. Cooper is found in the most northeast room of the floor. We tell him that Rail is looking for him and he's ready to drop everything and return to him. He has an escape, but it's damaged, so Jerin has to cast it to get him out. I walk back to Carbis and go to the basement to bring Cooper back to Rail. He asks Cooper to fix the Falcon, but Cooper needs some alumina to do that. We learn that it's a light metal that doesn't rust, and it's what the Falcon is made of, and we need 7 pieces of it. He says that there is a cave in the Fargo Islands and that a man named Brant in Linz will know where it is. So I need to unlock the Tower of Light's back door. But before I do anything, I warp to Epro and do some more grinding. Since at the time I was still playing, I wanted to play a little more but didn't feel like continuing the story yet. It's here I meet the very annoying Mega Frog with their strong attacks and ability to cast Champion on themselves for a full heal. I actually get wiped out on this grind when Mad Wolves double team my party members one at a time while casting Dread to make them lose huge amounts of defense. Later from the same fight I get Mixam to level 32 and Lufia to level 31 to teach her Blast, the second explosion spell. Then a bit later, from the same fight, Aguro reaches level 29 and Jerin reaches level 28 to learn Boost. Next, Mixam reaches level 33 and Lufia level 32 in the same fight. Aguro reaches level 30 next. I then return to Grenoble to get my target for the 7th and final floor of the old cave. This time my target is the Crown Jewels, so down into the old cave I go one last time. This is the biggest floor of them all. I start in the southwest and move east, collecting 6 chests on the way to a door. Through it and northwest I grab an item hidden in the poison and go down the stairs. In the basement I go anti-clockwise to the stairs in the northwest, grabbing 5 chests on the way. This puts me back on the first floor in the northwest corner. I open 2 chests and go through the door to find another, then up a long ladder for 3 more chests before I go back down to the basement. I go south to get the last 2 chests down there and take the stairs back to the starting room. From there I go up a ladder, getting 3 more chests, and then through the door into the big main room. I go southeast, 4 chests on the way, down a ladder and north for 2 more, across the poison west for another chest, and then down the stairs in the poison to another basement. I go east to a door with 4 chests on the way and through the door for another chest. North of the ladder and taking the stairs back to the first floor, 2 chests on the way. From there I go west and down a ladder for the final 5 chests. The chests in the first room are an empty, sweet water, the 2 in the poison being a cursed gloom pick and empty, then the 2 at the end being empty and an X potion. Enemies from outside Epro appear here now, which means that on top of the floor being the biggest, it also has fights that take forever. There's a gloom voice hidden in the poison before I go down to the basement. The chests down there are an X magic, then Jerin reaches level 29, an empty chest, a power potion, an empty, and a spell potion. The chests in the northwest of floor 3 are a Buster Sword, 4 years before Final Fantasy VII, this is 37 points stronger than Mixam's Great Axe. The other is empty. The one through the door is empty, and the 3 up the long ladder are the Crown Jewels, a Miracle, and a second Miracle. Back to the basement. The last 2 chests in the basement are a High Magic and empty. Back in the first room, the chests are an X Potion, empty, and a float. In the big room, the chests contain a Great Potion, followed by Mixam reaching level 34 and learning Dread, and Lufia reaching level 33 and learning the Instant Death Perish from the same fight. An empty, power potion, spell potion, X magic, empty, a miracle. Into the second basement for an X potion, empty, 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 a wind flute which heals the entire party for 50 HP and is infinite use, but only in battle. The other 2 chests are a clear silk, replaces Jerin's silver robe for 3 more defense, and a miracle. That just leaves the last 5 on the first floor. Empty, Agaro reaching level 31, a mind potion, empty, an escape, and finally 1 more empty chest. And that is the old cave completely cleared out, as far as I knew at the time. I return to Grenoble and hand over the crown jewels for 10,000 gold, with the man behind the counter telling me that I am the best treasure hunter ever. But that is where we're gonna have to leave it for this episode. Like with Ys, I thought this was going to be a 2-parter, and also like Ys, it turned out way longer than I expected. Had I not had the flu while writing this, not while recording the script, no way was I putting my voice on the internet the way it was then, I may have been able to squeeze this and the eventual part 3 into one very long video, but it just wasn't happening. So next episode we begin our search for the Illumina to fix our boat subplane, and through some yet to be determined steps after, finish this thing by working out what's actually going on with the Sinistrals, and also quite a lot of dungeons remaining. One last return to Lufia and the Fortress of Doom to finish it off. Last time, Professor Railshire sent me to find 7 pieces of the metal Illumina to fix our submarine so that it can actually travel underwater so that we can find the legendary dual blade to defeat the Sinistrals with. Our first hint is a man named Brant in the town Linz, but Linz is through the locked back door of the Tower of Light I cleared out last time. I did get permission to use the key to the Tower of Light from the Elder of the town Baku though. What he didn't tell me is that the key is on top of the tower. One long, random encounter after nearly every step journey north from Baku, I finally return to the Tower of Light. I head back to the roof. Up here is where last time I found a chest with the game's best helmet, the Might Helmet. Now the chest has been refilled and there's an old man standing there. This guy is furious that I interrupted his chanting to revive Amon, the Sinistral of Terror. And after just a single boss fight in the second video, we're already getting our first one in this part. The Guardian here has 1489 HP. I start with having Lufia drain away his defense and follow it up with Bolt. Jerin used Power Guards on Agaro and Mixam. It's been nearly 3 months since I wrote those first 2 parts and I'd forgotten just how awful that name is. And Mixam and Agaro beat him down. After that I just have Jerin use the Wind Flute on the entire party to recover whatever damage the boss deals out. He mainly uses Flame or Blizzard for about 40 to 50 damage for most of the party, but nearly 70 to Agaro. But the Wind Flute usually heals all of that each turn. He's no real threat to me and I kill him with little trouble. Lufia reaches level 34 and Jerin reaches level 30, learning Blizzard herself. Blizzard is the second level of multi-target ice spell. Despite killing the Guardian, we still get taunted by a menacing voice. Despite the weakness of the Guardian, the energy let off by the battle has revived Amon earlier than he expected. Amon also recognises Lufia and says that things are just as Garez said. Amon appears, joined by Garez. When Lufia responds to their taunting, Garez continues to respond as if he and Lufia know each other. Agaro tells everyone to rush in and kill them, but it doesn't work. They say that the Great Reunion is near and that Daos is awakening as they speak. The 2 teleport away, and having seen the power that 2 Sinistrals have, Agaro asks if they can even win, to which Mixam says that they don't have a choice. If all of them are revived, their world has no chance. Knowing that Daos is now close to revival, Mixam stresses that they need to find these 7 Illumina pieces and the dual blade as soon as possible. I open the chest for the light key. This key overrides the Might Helmet in the chest if you didn't already get it. So if you didn't randomly happen upon this place and decide to go through it before the game tells you about it, you just missed out on the game's best helmet. Bit of a dick move. Back down to the first floor, I use the light key on the door in the back and exit onto the other side. Out here is my first new enemy of the episode, a crazy pine. As I head north through the desert and then east through this canyon, I also get my first landworm. Out of the canyon is the town Linz. The first woman I talk to tells me that Brant went to the... I'm guessing this is meant to be pronounced Gaia's Island and not what my eyes auto-completed it as for the first second or two, but he went there to find some alumina and hasn't been back since. Also, the innkeeper here claims the town itself is the Tower of Light. I don't know what that's about. In the back of town, the man in the centre claims that the house next door has the path to Gaia's Island. He doesn't say which one, but one of the houses has some stairs going down and the other is a shop. The shelf in the combined weapon and armour shop is hiding an escape. I go down the stairs in the house to this warehouse and grab a hidden X-Magic in the southeast corner. Down more stairs into a tunnel with two paths. The first one leads to an old man who says that people used to mine alumina in the Gaia's Island caves. He says that now it can only be found in the Fargo Islands. He imagines Brant is getting lost right now. There are 3 chests here containing sweet water, another dragon egg, and a swing wing. The other path leads back out onto the map and sure enough I'm on another island. A little northeast is a cave and right in front of the entrance I get a battle that brings Mixam up to level 35. Now for the first new dungeon of the video, the Gaia's Island Cave. First battle here gets me the new enemies Zorus and Werefrog. To start with, I go southeast a little for chests containing an X-bomb and revive before I fall through a hole next to them. Right next to where I land is the first chest, then I go northeast for a second chest. I then go west and take the stairs back to the first floor. The first chest is a high magic, the second is another dragon egg. Next new enemy is the Saber Spook, then back to the start. I've crossed out the 2 I got first, northwest to 2 chests, then east to 2 more, to the southwest for another pair. I then drop through the hole north of them back to the first basement. The first 2 chests are a Stone Cure and Escape, while the second pair are an X-Potion and High Magic. The third pair are an X-Potion and X-Bomb. Down another hole back to the first basement. Another new bird in here with the Cave Rock. From where I land, I go north for another chest with an X-Bomb inside. I then take the same stairs back up to the first floor. I drop down another hole to the east of the last pair of chests I opened here, putting me on some stairs leading back up to a chest containing the alumina. Well, that's one piece down, but we still haven't found Brant. On the way back to the main part of the first floor, Agaro reaches level 32. From the stairs I go east and down a ladder, then northeast to a chest. I then go north of the ladder here and through the door into a tunnel that leads to a second chest. Back down the ladder and south leads to 3 doors. The eastern one takes me to a small tunnel to some stairs leading above the tunnels to 2 more chests. The western door takes me to a teleport leading to a tunnel taking me back to the first floor where there is another chest. Then the middle door takes me to a switch that changes the teleporter's destination to another tunnel containing another chest that also leads back out onto this floor where to the southwest there is another set of stairs down to the first basement. The first chest down the ladder is an escape. The second through the tunnel is a magic guard. The 2 above the 3 tunnels are an X-Potion and X-Magic. The chest past the teleporter is a revive. After flipping the teleporter switch, the chest it now leads to contains an X-Potion. Down to the basement again. First, northwest from the stairs is a chest. I next move east until I can turn north and then east again for a second chest. Back to the turn, I go east and south to go through a door. The little room has a chest and a teleporter that leads to a higher up chest in the main room. Back through the teleporter, I go all the way north, west and south through a couple doors with a chest on the way, leading to the stairs down to the second basement. First chest down here has some X-Arrows, the second chest is a revive. The chest in the room with the teleporter is an X-Potion, while the one past the teleporter has a silver sword which has already been outclassed by weapons obtained earlier. The final chest is an opal ring before I go down into the second basement. This room starts with several ladders down to the bottom, with 2 chests off to the east. At the bottom and east some more is another chest, then east across the bridge and taking the northern fork all the way. The first chest is a power gourd and the second a mind gourd. The final chest is a revive. Lufia then reaches level 35 and learns Bounce, a more effective silence spell. At the end of the northern fork is a guy, and we ask if he's Brant. Nope, he's Clack, the guy I heard about in Baku last time who researches Doom Island. He knows so much about Doom Island that I have a few things I can ask him. First, I ask about Doom Island in general. He tells me about the ring island I've already visited to the east where Doom Island fell. There's a lagoon in the middle of the island that is said to lead right to the Fortress of Doom. There are 3 lagoons surrounding the outer ring that lead to the middle of the ring. He also discovered that until recently, ocean currents would flow near Doom Island, but now they're changing. He fears that Doom Island is starting to move, causing the change in the currents. Asking about the dual blade has him say that it should be in the Fortress of Doom. Makes sense, Maxim had the sword when he died, and he died within the fortress. Asking about Brant has him reply that Brant is his friend. We fill him in on why we need to find Brant, and he says that Brant is actually in Mars. Brant lies about being here because he has a secret girlfriend in Mars and didn't want anyone to know he was visiting her. The town is north of Linz. If he's not in the town, he should be looking for Illumina in the nearby caves. Finally, I can ask him about Illumina, but it's what I already know. There isn't much left, but most of what remains should be in the Fargo Islands to the north of here. As I go to leave, Clack says he has something for me and leads us into this room in the southeast. Oh yeah, when I'm not in control, the party can leg it through a dungeon, but when I make them move, they take the time. Clack has found the ring that Maxim used to wear and gives it to me, the Wave Ring. It goes to Mixam for a decent boost in every stat except strength. Mixam wonders if Clack is fine with giving away something so valuable, but Clack says that if it can be used to destroy the Sinistrals, then it makes his life's research worth it. There's also a healing tile here before I teleport out and teleport again to Baku. After selling off the items I don't need, I walk back to the Tower of Light and go east. I cross this bridge, Mixam reaches level 36, and enter the cave to Mars. Or I would if I didn't get another fight one step in front of it. This was where the encounter rate got to me and I caved. I started using the emulator speed up function to speed through random encounters against enemies I've already faced so many times before. I didn't want to, but I got fed up. I've never had a problem with random encounters as a concept, but this got too much. The cave to Mars is a very simple walk north, with a small bit to the east halfway through leading to a single chest. But on the way we have new enemies, Icurse, Green Magi and Manticore. The one chest is a power potion, Jerin reaches level 31, I face my first troll and I exit out the other side. West across this bridge and continuing northwest when I realise, hang on, what the hell am I doing? I visited Mars already on my world tour last time. I only needed to enter that cave for the chest. In fact, I'm not sure why the cave exists, since it's much more convenient to sail around the island anyway. So I teleport to Mars. Brant's girlfriend is in the church. She says that he went to Loire Island, one of the islands surrounding Mars, to look for Illumina. He hasn't returned, with their planned wedding day fast approaching. I turned down the chance for a boat tour of the islands last time, but now I'm taking it. Down to the dock, I'm told that another two of the islands, Elba and Ullup, are connected by warp points. There's also Ison Island, which has a tower that has since been taken over by pirates. I get on the boat and it gives me a chance to see where all the islands are without the risk of random encounters while exploring. Ullup Island is to the east, Loire Island north of that where we can also see Brant's boat. West of Loire is Elba Island, and then Ison Island is northwest a little from there. That's it for the tour, and I get on the Falcon and sail to Loire Island, entering the cave there. To start with, I go north and down a ladder, then east and up another to go northwest to my first chest. Then east some more to go down another ladder to a second chest and an item hidden in the poison. Next and across a bridge where I can go northwest to find two more chests. Back to the bridge and east and up a ladder. I ignore the stairs and keep moving east until I can climb down another ladder to find another chest. I go northeast from there and through a door for another chest. Back up the ladder and west a bit, I can go south and down another ladder, then go north a little bit for my next chest. Then back to the ladder and east, taking the northern split for another chest. Back to the split and up a ladder. South and take the first west all the way to the centre of the screen for my next chest. Southeast and up another ladder to follow that path to another. Back down the ladder and all the way to the southeast corner of the map for another chest. Then up a ladder and west to the last one in this room. And that set of stairs marked B that I passed earlier, I go down there. I'm not drawing that backtrack on, I don't have the space to make it look good. The first chest is an X potion, then I get a new enemy in the blue skull. The second chest is a great potion and a mind potion is in the poison pool. On the bridge, Agaro reaches level 33. Two new enemies in the Vampire and Red Core. The two chests in the northwest are a revive and a power potion. The next chest down a ladder is a high bomb and the one through the door is my second piece of Illumina. After the next ladder is another power potion. The next battle after that gets Lufia to level 36. The battle after that gets Mixam to level 37. He learns Fake, which temporarily increases agility. The chest after that holds a Gloom Arrow. The one in the centre of the map has a revive. The chest up the ladder contains a Mac ring. It's another ring invalidated by me visiting towns earlier than expected and buying later equipment. The chest in the corner is a high magic and the one after it is a miracle. The next battle has Agaro reach level 34 and Jerin reach level 32, teaching her the mirror spell that grants temporary spell reflection. And now down those stairs to an elevated section of the second basement. Here I move west, opening one chest right where I start and another at the end. South next, skipping an east turn and going all the way for a third. Take that turn all the way with another chest on the way. Then east south to find four more chests next to a set of stairs going down. Those stairs lead to a room that leads out to the lower section of this floor. I go west a tiny bit and all the way north, with a chest off to the west halfway and another in the northeast corner. From there I move west to go through a door leading to another two chests. Back out, west some more, and south all the way takes me to another door hiding another chest. Northeast from there is another chest to another door. This leads to a tunnel that puts me in a small closed-in section with the floor's final chest and a hidden hole down to the final basement. The chest where I start has a foul water, and from the next fight, Mixam reaches level 38 and Luffy level 37 and learns the strongest water spell, Flood. The rest on this elevated part are a Gloom Arrow, Miracle, Agaro reaching level 35, a Power Potion, 1000 gold, a Spell Potion, another Gloom Arrow, and an Escape. Down on the lower section, Jerin reaches level 33. The first chest when going north is a High Bomb, the one in the corner is a Great Potion, the two through the northern door are a High Magic and X Magic. The chest in the southern door holds an X Potion. Next to the last door is an Escape. The last one is a High Bomb and I drop down that hole. This one isn't big enough to need mapping. The two chests I can see right away have a Float and Sweet Water. There's also an X Magic hidden in the Poison. There's a guy here, but I ignore him at first and go through the door in the northeast for the cave's final chest, a Revive. The guy is, of course, Brant, who got lost and fell down here while looking for some Illumina. He asks for help and Jerin offers to teleport him out. But first we make sure that he is Brant. We ask if he knows where the rest of the Illumina is, and since we saved him, he tells me what he knows. Excluding what I already have, there's one on Elba Island, two on Ullap Island, and with me already knowing that the King of Herat has a piece, that just leaves one left unaccounted for. We teleport him out, and outside he gives that last piece I was just talking about. That's my third piece, and I know where all remaining four are. He then goes back to his girlfriend in Mars. I go back too to heal, and talking to Brant again has him tell me that he knows of the piece in Herat. Then why didn't you tell me then? Yeah, I already knew, but he didn't know that. He kept that information from me for no reason. Back out to sea and the first fight gets Luffy to level 38. I next set sail to Elba Island and check out that cave. A new enemy in my first fight here with the Nail Man. That fight gets Mixam to level 39 and teaches him the spell Trick, which increases attack power. I take a few steps east and onto a teleporter to end up sent to the Ullap Island cave. I was told ahead of time that the two were connected this way. From the teleporter in the northeast corner, I go all the way down to the southeast corner for my first chest. I go west to press a switch that opens a door slightly north of it on the raised area. Then I continue west until I can turn north to find two more chests. West to the wall, north to the end, and east to the last chest on the lowest level. After that I loop back around and take the same teleporter I arrived on back to the Elba Island cave. My first fight here has the new Mud Ghoul enemy. The first chest is another Dragon Egg. The two chests next to each other are a Speed Potion and X Potion. Agaro reaches level 36 soon after. The last chest is a High Power Ring, granting a huge 40-point attack increase. But I don't bother with it. Back to Elba Island. East of the teleporter is a door to a chest. After that I have two sets of ladders to climb down, with a chest on each level down. There are 4 doors on this level and I take the eastern one. The room it leads to has a switch that opens a door right next to it on a lower level, then west across a bridge to find another chest. I then go back the way I came. I take the next door on the west, which has a small winding path to another chest. Back out and skip the next door to take the westernmost one. Through here I go north and down a ladder to find 2 more chests, then east and south under a bridge for the next chest, and continuing east and through the door I open to a teleporter that sends me to the last chest in that room. Back to the first, big room and down another ladder to the bottom to find another chest. Moving east, using the inn down here to heal, there's another chest. All the way east and up a ladder for another chest, and then continue north through a door to another teleporter to the Ullap cave. The chest in the room next to the teleporter is a Mind Potion. The two found going down the ladders are a Smoke Ball and a High Daze Ring that also goes unused. The chest in the second room after flipping the switch has an X Potion inside. Jerin reaches level 34 and learns the best fire spell in the game, Vulcan. The chest through the next door has a Speed Potion inside. The two chests through the western door are a Miracle and an X Magic. The one past the bridge has a High Bomb. The walled-in chest the teleporter takes me to contains my 4th piece of Illumina. Going back a room and down the ladder to the bottom, the chest holds a Mind Potion. There are still random encounters inside the inn, with Mixam reaching level 40 and Luffy level 39 in here. Luffy learns the strongest explosion spell in the game, Sunder. The other chest down here has a Silver Rod. The chest up the long ladder has a Spell Potion inside, and back to Ullap Island. From the teleporter I go east to the first chest, further east and across a bridge for a second, then south for 2 more chests. The first chest has a Silver Wrist, then my 5th Illumina. I get my first Red Wolves in here. The last 2 chests are a Miracle and Silver Plate, then back the way I came to Elba Island. All the way south and through this door. To the east are 2 more chests, and to the west is a switch I need to press. The chests are an X Magic and Silver Armour. I flip the switch in here down and return to the last teleporter I just used to now be sent to the Ullap Cave's middle level. I cross the bridge and go southwest into the door I opened earlier to find a chest. then back out and to the northeast to the final chest of both dungeons. Agaro reaches level 37 here. The chest behind the door holds my 6th Illumina. The final chest is the next portion. That was an interesting dungeon, having to swap between 2 separate ones that could have been much worse. Just the right level of complexity, any more than this would have been ruined by the encounter rate. After warping back to Mars to heal and sell, I next swap to Herat since I know that's where the final piece of Illumina is. I talk to the king, whose boredom with food still hasn't improved. If I bring him something delicious and new, he'll give me anything. Leiden is a town of chefs and so I go back there. I spoke to this guy last time, but I am reminded of the chef who talks about needing a purple newt to make his dish complete. So that newt is my next target. I walk back to Herat and sailing north past the mountains, I get off on the west. I start travelling southwest across this desert until I find a shrine. Remember that for later. I cross the bridge to the south, travel east across another going north, and then keep going north to find this cave. This is the Purple Newt Cave. To start with, east to the first chest, then south past an eastern split, and east across a bridge leading to a second chest. Back to that split and east and down a ladder, then east and down another ladder leading to 3 more chests. Back up the ladder and south all the way, then west all the way to a door with 2 chests behind it. All the way east and down a ladder to go west again, skipping the first door and finding 4 items lined up and hidden in poison. The door above the poison leads to some stairs to another chest around the centre of the screen. When I come back out, I go west a little more for the next chest. I next go all the way east and up a ladder leading to another chest. After that is the Northern Fork, all the way and through this hidden passage in the wall for another chest. South a little and into the most northeastern room to flip a switch, changing the teleporter destination. Then back to the fork and west and up a ladder for another chest. Into the room up here for the teleporter leading to the last 2 chests of the cave. The first chest has a revive inside. The first enemy in here is the Lizard Man, followed by the Basilisk, then a goofy salamander. The second chest gets me some chainmail. Soon after, Jerrin reaches level 35. The 3 chests down a ladder are a Swing Wing, X Potion and High Bomb. The chests behind the first door are a Great Potion and a Miracle. The items in the poison are a Miracle, Grilled Newt, and Grilled Newt. The chest past the second door and up the stairs is a Revive. The one in the southwest corner holds a Stone Cure. The chest up the ladder in the southeast corner has a Stun Arrow. The chest in the northern hidden room is an Engage Ring. Mixam reaches level 41 on the way to the next and learns Rally, a revival spell. The next battle gets Lufia to level 40. The chest before the teleporter is another Gloom Arrow. The last 2 chests are a Power Guard and the purple newt I came here for. Now to leave and walk back to Leiden. I return to the chef and his dialogue does not change. He still says he wants the purple newt, but doesn't react to me having it. So instead I go into the basement kitchen to find an old cooking master and tell him about the King of Herat. He goes into a long ramble about the king's appetite and about how there's a special taste, but I'm going through it waiting for him to bring up the purple newt so I can give it to him. I give it to him and I guess he mashes it up and gives me the magic flavour it leaves behind. So I walk back to Herat and run to the chef in the castle. I give him the magic flavour and he gets to work. He has the party taste test it and they all love it, except for Jerrin who doesn't even touch hers. I go to the king and he's so grateful for what we did for him he gives me access to his jewel collection in the basement. So I check it out in the back of the bottom floor. The guard lets me in and they have 14 chests to open. Gloom Voice, Carbo Sword which goes to Mixam for 15 more attack than the Buster Sword, X Potion, Silver Robe, Plum Cider, Tower Shield, Royal Statue, Carbo Helm so Agaro can have one too, Fry Pan, Mark Heals, Pot, Miracle, a second Miracle, and the final piece of Illumina. With that I walk back to Platina to deliver it to Professor Shire, but as soon as I get there I'm told he went to Ison Island alone. The pirates that live there kidnapped his son Lou from Lorbinia. Well, considering the situation Shire abandoned Lou too, maybe he's better off with the pirates. They might actually feed him. So I warp to Mars and get sailing to Ison Island, the only one of Mars' surrounding islands I haven't been to yet. And once I dock there, I enter Ison Tower. First there's a chest right in front of me when I enter. Through the door next to it for a second chest, and another next to that for a third before taking one last door to the stairs to floor 2. That first chest by the entrance is a sour cider. The second has 750 gold, and the third a high potion. Before the door to floor 2 there's a sign saying that to open the door I have to step on 4 switches in front of it and then another door switch. Pressing them in the wrong order will set off the alarm. Then on to floor 2. There are 2 routes on this floor, both leading to different halves of floor 3. I start by going south down the western side through 2 doors, grabbing a chest on the way, and going through one last door to the stairs to the northern half of floor 3. I leave the first 2 rooms and grab the chests in the other 2. Then south and west to grab another chest and east from it to drop down a hole to an isolated part of floor 2 with another chest. And then drop through another, get back to floor 2 and take on the eastern side. There's a freeway split between the first two doors, with a chest each on the western and eastern splits. Then through the middle split leading to the stairs that lead to the southern half of floor 3. Up here I go north for a chest and west for a second, then back to the stairs to go west and north to the stairs up to floor 4. First battle I get in the tower is the first appearance of the Dark Spook enemy. I don't know how the pirates managed to settle here with several Grim Reapers just hanging about. Actually, imagine just having this game's encounter rate in your own home. And yeah, they can cast Perish to instantly take out a party member. The western chest on floor 2 is a power guard. Northern floor 3 has me find Professor Shire in a cell. He says that the head pirate should have the prison key. He got caught messing up the order of the 4 switches. He says that the first switch should be the upper left one. There's another locked cell next to him with a chest I can't reach yet. The chests in the other rooms are a speed potion, after which Aguro reaches level 38, and a high bomb. Then I get my first battle against Steel Lords. And what do these have to do with the pirates? Are they actually pirates? The other chest up here is a revive. The next battle has my first fireplate enemy. The chest after dropping down the hole is an X potion. My first Berserker appears on the way back to floor 2. The western split on the eastern side of floor 2 leads to a big arrow, while the eastern one has an X potion waiting for me. The sign by the stairs to floor 3 says that the door won't open if all the switches are already down. The chests on southern floor 3 are a swing wing and a smoke ball, then up to floor 4. Up here are the 4 switches in front of the locked door. Well, all I really know is that the upper left switch is pressed first. After that is the lower right, lower left and upper right before I press the last switch and open the door. Behind it are the stairs up to the top floor. Up here is a pirate keeping me from a couple chests and Lou. He steps aside and the leader storms up to me for a boss fight against the bosun, and apparently the big guy is multiple pirates. The bosun has 1320 HP and the pirates has 3492. It's a bit unusual for a game to still bother giving a boss with 4-digit HP a number other than 0 for its 1's digit. At that point, what difference does it make? I start by focusing on the bosun. If you've watched the other 2 parts by now, you should know the boss strategy. Lower their defense, boost Mixam and Aguro's attack, and then have Lufia cast Bolt once Drain is in effect. Aguro with the Power Guard takes about almost a quarter of the bosun's maximum HP with a single attack. The bosun has a weak physical attack and will cast Dubious on the pirates to increase his defense, but he doesn't last long and leaves the pirates all alone. The pirates is more threatening, able to throw X-bombs on the entire party and cast Foul on them all to try and put them to sleep. But Lufia has Waken, so it's okay. He also has the attack Jolt, which is strong enough to do almost 100 damage to Aguro. When he gets low on health, he starts throwing out the Storm spell too, and even Roar to confuse the party, leading to Mixam annihilating Aguro. But apart from that, I use the same strategy I used on the bosun, it just takes longer since he has over 2000 more HP than him. I end up killing him before Aguro can be revived. Jerin reaches level 36 and learns Champion. The party rush to check on Lou, who thinks Mixam is still chasing him over the incident in Lorbinia, saying that his stealing days are over. When we ask why he's even here, he says he had some business to take care of. Lufia assumes he was looking for his father. He pretends not to care about Rail, which is perfectly fair, until Lufia says that he's in the tower looking for him. But hang on, Lou says he came here looking for his dad, but Rail only came here after learning Lou was captured first. What's going on? The 2 chests in this room are a Silver Tara and the Pirate Key. Back to Northern Floor 3 where Mixam reaches level 42 and I first ignore Shire to open the cell next to him for the tower's final chest, a heavy ring. Then I let him out. Lou teases him over being caught so easily and Rail has a hard time recognising him. He tries to pass it off as kids growing so fast, not the fact that he abandoned Lou years ago. Lufia tells him to knock off the arguing while Mixam finds it amusing. The reunion is interrupted by Mixam telling Rail that they have all 7 pieces of alumina for repairing the Falcon. He says to meet him at Lab 3, and outside he actually asks what Lou will do now. The party are arseholes and put pressure on Lou to go with Rail, and not on Rail to offer Lou a place to live to make up for years of neglect. Even Lou doesn't really want to go with him. Rail even has the balls to say that he's always good to Lou after he's told to treat Lou well. Lou asks him why he never even wrote, and Rail changes the subject to, "I'm actually inventing the telephone right now." It works, and everyone's just talking about this new invention. Rail's a bell end. He sails off and I warp to Carbis after him. Rail gets ready for the repairs and sends Cooper off to fetch the Falcon. He brags about how he can fix the Falcon in seconds and actually pulls it off. Now I can travel underwater, Lufia reminding us that the dual blade should be in Doom Island. Rail says that I can sink through any eddy in the sea and reminds me where Doom Island should be, telling me to look around Sochette since it's on the ring island that Doom Island is sunken under. I get an automated journey showing how travel underwater looks leading outside the lab. Of course I've already been to Sochette, so I just warp there. There's an eddy just west of town to dive into, and I can see a few cave entrances. What the fuck is a steel lord doing underwater? Gotta love that pose. No big deal, just lounging on my horse at the bottom of the sea. South from the eddy is a big entrance, and I can just see the Fortress of Doom out of reach. Inside this cave is a series of currents that act like a conveyor once I sail on them, forcing me along. I start in the southwest and take a current to an eddy leading into the main part of the cave, ride a current north to a 4-way split and go west, around the current for my first chest. Back to the fork and going east for a second chest and south for a third. Back to the fork and north to another fork. I start with west again for my fourth chest. Back to the fork and north for a fifth chest. To the fork again and northeast to a current that takes me around to the final 2 chests and the current that takes me back to the fork. The first battle in here gets Lufia to level 41 and teaches her the strongest thunder spell, Thunder. And yeah, you can still get random encounters while being forced along the currents when you actually aren't doing any moving yourself. My first new enemy in here is a Magura. Jerrin still destroys all sea creatures with fire spells, especially now she has Vulcan. That first chest on the west holds a high potion. The chests gained from going east and south are arrows and a power potion. The fourth chest is a mystery pin. The fifth chest is a long outdated normal potion. Aguro then reaches level 39. The last 2 chests are an X potion and spell potion. I then leave the way I came. After returning to Sochette to heal, equipping Lufia with the blast ring, and finally remembering this game has a row system and swapping Lufia and Aguro's positions, I drop down the same eddy, realise I have another Grand Blade I can give to Mixam, and take the cave entrance slightly to the east of where I enter from. In this cave, I start in the north and ride a current down to the first chest and an eddy to the main section. In here, I navigate around a few currents to reach the second chest near the centre. I ride the current below it and the one below that takes me to the west end of the screen near another eddy leading out. But instead I ride around it to the east to get my third chest. Back to the middle and take this current against the wall to the end and squeeze north between it and another current to get the other chest in the centre. I ride that next current south and go northeast to the last chest in this room before I go all the way west and north to reach an eddy to another tunnel. This tunnel has a long ride south to the next eddy. But at the end I ride back up north halfway next to the currents to reach 2 more chests. Then I take the eddy. The first chest is an empty bottle. The second is a magic guard. The one in the west is a high potion. The other central chest is a miracle. Jerrin reaches level 37 on the way to the next. An opal ring is in the last chest before I take the eddy. And right in front of the eddy, Mixam reaches level 43. Those 2 chests in the tunnel are a high potion and a miracle. I then take the eddy to the bottom floor. I start in the south and cling to the southern wall as I travel west around the currents to reach the first chest. Then north, clinging to the wall around the currents to a second chest. Then on the northern current to ride it all the way around to the east and then northwest to the third chest. And then south, west, north and east around more currents for the last 2 chests in the centre. The first chest is a Zircon Risk. I give it to Jerrin for 5 more defense and her Silver Wrist. First fight after that gets Lufia to level 42. Second chest is 800 gold, third is a high magic, and the last 2 are Foul Water and a Gloom Arrow. I then ride the currents back to the west and take the eddy there outside, now inside the ring, where I can easily sail a little west into the Fortress of Doom ruins. First thing I do when I dock here is swap Jerrin's Flame Ring for the Frost Ring. The party is surprised to find that there's still air in this place. This layout is exactly the same as it was when I first run through as Maxim's party at the beginning of the game. Enemies in here are mostly the same stuff I can fight around Epro on the world map, and the same that Maxim's party fought too. There are no treasures to collect here, so it's just repeating the journey I already made before. Aguro reaches level 40 and I make it to the room 2 floors below the top to find the dual blade lying there. The dual blade starts ringing and then inserts itself into our inventory. The dual blade is the second strongest weapon in the game, 56 points stronger than the Grand Blade. But the fortress starts shaking and statues of the Sinistrals rise up from the floor. Looking at them, they recognise Gares and Amon, having met them before. But this is their first time seeing what Daos and Erim look like. Aguro has everyone take a closer look at Erim's statue, and Lufia is disturbed to see that she looks exactly like Erim. Everyone agrees that this can only be a statue of Lufia, but Lufia herself can't accept that. She remembers her past, having been raised by Roman in Alekia since she was a child. Mixam sides with her, saying that he knows Lufia can't be a Sinistral because he grew up alongside her. Aguro reasons that this could be a trick to create doubt in the group and split them up. That's when Gares and Amon show up, and after them, Daos appears too. He says that the reunion is near, but when it's pointed out to them that Erim isn't back yet, Daos says that Erim was already reborn 16 years earlier. He confirms that Lufia is Erim reborn. When Lufia won't believe it, Daos comes back to the one mystery about herself that was never cleared up, her past before ending up in Alekia. Daos says she can remember no parents because she had no parents, being Erim reborn, she simply came into existence. This is why the Sinistrals have allowed the party to live so many times and turned down chances to engage them. They knew Lufia was Erim, which is why Gades recognised her back in Sharon. It was Lufia's unknown, even to her, power as a Sinistral that was reviving the others behind the scenes. Daos hits Lufia with a spell to unlock Lufia's memories as Erim, but even then it will take time for them to fully return. So the Sinistrals leave to give Erim time to reassert herself. And then the fortress starts moving, so Jerryn teleports everyone out. As the party flee in the Falcon, Doom Island can be seen rising from the lake into the sky. The party rush Lufia to the inn at Sochette. Aguro wants to talk to Mixam about what they've just learned, but Mixam wants to push it off for tomorrow. He doesn't have the energy right now. Everyone goes to sleep and the next morning, Lufia takes a bit to realise where she is. She gets out of bed and overhears Mixam and Aguro talking in their room. Aguro asks what they're going to do about Lufia, to which Mixam says there's nothing that needs to be done. Aguro accuses him of denying reality, but Mixam says that they just have to kill the other 3 Sinistrals. Aguro points out that Daos said that Lufia's powers as Erim is what revived them. That must mean that the Sinistrals can continue to be revived as long as Lufia is alive. Aguro asks what Mixam will do if that is the case. He dodges the question and doubles down on killing the other 3. But Aguro doesn't drop it, asking if he could kill Lufia too. He doesn't know, and neither of them want to think about that possibility. Mixam asks if Aguro thinks that Lufia could harm them. Aguro doesn't know, and they both decide it's best to stop going in circles on this and deal with things as they happen. When they decide to wake the girls, Lufia rushes back to bed and pretends to have not heard anything. Mixam checks on Lufia and she says her head no longer hurts, but she wonders when Mixam is going to ask her whether or not her memories as Erim have returned. She says that they haven't yet and asks if Mixam believes her. To him, it doesn't matter because as far as he's concerned, she is Lufia, not Erim. But now they have to work out what to do about Doom Island. Professor Shire once said that the Falcon could fly, so Mixam suggests going to him in Carbis and asking him about it. I equip Mixam with the dual blade, bumping his attack stat just barely over 500, then warp to Carbis. Everyone there is aware of Doom Island, and Rael says that to make the Falcon fly, we need power oil. They haven't used it themselves before because it's dangerous. I can buy some in Epro, meanwhile Rael will travel over to Fredaria to get ready for the upgrade, so I warp to Epro. I check out the item shop, which is closed for the day because they couldn't get any power oil in. We ask where we can find it ourselves. There's an oil cave north of town, but a recent landslide has closed off the road that leads there. There's a guy called Hedge who tried to get through but failed. I'm told he's north of town looking for a way through. And so I leave town and get moving northwest around the mountains. I cross a bridge and a little to the east is Hedge. We ask him where the power oil is and he repeats what I was already told at the shop. What information is new is that the oil cave is locked and he has the key to it, which we can have. It's clear from the situation that the only way to reach the oil cave is to go underwater. As I sail around the island, Jerryn reaches level 38 and learns Glacier, the strongest ice spell. Mixam also reaches level 44 because the game decided I needed a random encounter on nearly every movement. He learns Succumb, an instant death spell that targets a group. Turns out I was sailing the wrong way too. North of Epro is a break in the mountains I can sail through leading to an eddy. Moving southeast down here and through a gap, I fight my first manta rays. As I sail north, Lufia reaches level 43 and learns Succumb herself. I enter the large cave entrance. This is the underwater cave to the oil cave. I start in the southeastern corner with a north and west fork. I go north first, leading to 2 chests. Back to the start and taking the west path, only to turn north right away again, leading to another chest and then further north to a 4th through a door to a little room. I go south to ride a current down to a chest and then ride another to the southwest corner of the cave to find a room with 2 more chests. Back to the centre, I take a current west to reach 2 more chests. To the centre again and I follow the northern path to the exit, with 1 last chest nearby. My first battle in here is against my first sea dragons. The first 2 chests are a power potion and a big arrow. The next battle gets Aguro to level 41. The third is a mystery pin and the 4th in the little room is a miracle. The 5th chest is a high magic and the 2 in the southwest corner are an X-bomb and X-potion. The second pair are a magic guard and power guard. Mixam reaches level 45 from the next fight and the final chest is a grand blade. I then leave out the other side. To the west is another eddy that takes me back to the surface, but now I'm inside the island. I sail north and get off on land there. Then comes a short journey around the mountains to the west, Lufia reaching level 44, then floating across a poison swamp to enter the oil cave. To start with, east across more poison to the door requiring the oil key to unlock, then east through the next room to the first chest on the way to the door to a larger room with the second chest right next to where I start. Down a ladder and east and north over more poison to a 3rd chest, then south down another ladder, west to the 4th chest and south some more down another. I go east and down another ladder to find an item hidden in poison and another chest near it. Back up the ladder and north to another chest, then up another ladder and west to one last chest. I go all the way southwest and cross a bridge to the stairs down to the next basement. First battle in here is against the new Mad Knight and gets aggro to level 42. Second battle is also against new enemies, the Ifrit. The first chest is 850 gold. The second chest is a dragon arrow. The third chest is a high bomb. Fourth is a dragon tooth, another kind of arrow. The item hidden in the poison is a high magic, and the chest near it has a dragon ring, which lets the wearer deal more damage to dragon enemies. The last two chests are a big arrow and a miracle. Now to the basement. I follow the path east and north and go down the ladder to go all the way north to this floor's first chest. Back south a bit and east under this bridge, taking the northern fork to a second chest. I continue east under another bridge and then go south under another, with a third chest slightly further east. All the way to that first ladder I went down, and north across a bridge, east across another to the fourth chest, and then south across another bridge, down a ladder and west to the fifth chest. After that, east and north to the stairs down to the second basement. The first chest is another dragon tooth, the second is a high potion, the third is a swing wing. On the way to the fourth, Jerrin reaches level 40 and learns Trick. Fourth is an X-bomb. Fifth is a high magic. Mixam reaches level 46 from the next battle. Down to the second basement. East a little and down a ladder, following the path west, north and east to the first chest. Back up the ladder, east a little more, and north down another ladder for a second chest to the west. Back up the ladder, east and down another, then all the way east for a chest against a wall. I then go north and down another ladder to where the last two chests are. The first chest is a miracle. Aguro reaches level 43. The second is a dragon tooth. Lufia reaches level 45 right after. The third chest is a high magic. The first chest down in the little pit is a great potion, but there's a dragon in the way of the final chest. No talk, straight to fighting. The oil dragon has 4700 HP and no weaknesses. Lower the boss's defense, power up Mixam and Aguro's attacks and have Jerrin on wind flute duty. Lufia casts thunder and also heal if needed. The oil dragon has its own whole party fire attack, Fire Air. Sometimes it can end up dealing 100 damage or more to a character. It also has a standard strong physical attack. There's also Dash, which looks to be the attack I just described but slightly stronger. Its final attack is Oily Air, which reduces the entire party's agility. I'm doing about 800 damage a turn right now, so this fight doesn't last too long. With it dead and out of the way, I can finally get the power oil from the chest behind it. I warp out and warp straight to Froderia. I find Rael in the lab and give him the power oil. Everyone piles into the Falcon to upgrade it, and now I can make the Falcon fly. Mixam thanks the Professor for all his help and promises to defeat the Sinistrals. Rael also makes them promise to bring the Falcon back in one piece. And themselves too, I suppose. A worker runs in to tell us that Doom Island has moved again and is floating above Glasdar Tower. And of course, Glasdar Tower is the one place in the world that the Falcon can't take me straight to. The winds around it are too turbulent for a safe landing. Like so many dungeons in this game, there's a small cave to act as a mini dungeon that needs to be gone through first to reach it. But that can wait, I have some flying around the world to do. First, I mentioned the shrine between Herat Castle and the Purple Newt Cave. This is the Dragon Shrine. I can talk to the dragon here, and since I have all 8 dragon eggs, I have a selection of wishes. I ask for the best shield in the game, the Might Shield. The dragon eggs are scattered around the world and placed in other chests I've already opened for me to track down for another wish. Yes, of course I know, you don't need to make the obvious comparison. I give Jerrin the Might Shield, 40 points stronger than her Zircon wrist. When I return to Froderia to sell outdated equipment, a woman tells me of the town Erebus to the west. I was never able to reach it without flight before, the island surrounded by rocks, but now I can get there. The party comment on the convenience of the inn being right at the town entrance. More convenient is the spell potion I can steal from its shelf. The armour shop here sells all the Zircon equipment. Zircon armour for Mixam and Aguro, Zircon rope for Jerrin, Zircon plates for Mixam and Aguro, and Zircon helms for both of them. Combined it's about 10 extra defense for the men and 7 for Jerrin. The weapon shop has the Zircon axe I buy for Aguro, 44 points stronger than a Grand Blade. The guy near the shop lets me know that I also need a key to get into Glasdar Tower and that he'll tell me what he knows if I get him some apple cider from the old man's basement. The basement is nearby. As I go down there are 2 chests containing pear cider and plum cider. Further down is an old woman who sells cider, but not the one I'm after. But there's another room in the back where the old man is and I buy some apple cider from him. He calls it plum cider though. It's also a grand. I give it to the man who says there's a separate cave north of Glasdar Tower where the key can be found. I complained about the repeated journeys through that cave last time as an example of the game's pacing being worse than usual. This is the only other time in the game where the pacing bothered me. In the span of the few minutes, I've had 3 large back-to-back dungeons sprung on me before I've even entered the first one. Before even starting, the thought of all that with no story content between them to break it up is exhausting. So let's get flying north. I can see Glasdar Tower and Doom Island above it, but approaching it gets me turned away by the winds. The cave I need first is slightly north of it. So, the cave north of Glasdar Tower. There's a Steel Lord variant in here, the Variant. Then I somehow trick myself into thinking the cave north of the Glasdar Tower where I was told the Glasdar key would be was not the cave I was looking for. Clearly it's the cave a little south of Glasdar. That must be what the cave called Cave North of Glasdar Tower must be. No, this is the cave leading to Glasdar Tower. East and down a ladder leading to the first chest, down another ladder and through a door to a second chest, back out the door and east for an item in the poison and north to a chest, back south and east. South of the fork leads into a room with healing tiles while north leads to some stairs to the next floor. The first chest is an X-bomb. First battle in here has my first Wing Lion, a Manticore palette swap. This fight gets Jerry into level 41. The second chest in the little room is a black ring. It goes to Agaro for a slight hit to defense, an increase in attack and agility, and a large increase in magic resistance over the yellow ring. The item in the poison is a power potion. 2 new palette swaps in the Zorus Rex and Gloom, and the last one on this floor is some X-arrows. Then another new enemy in the Humongous. Enemies here give thousands of XP, which I keep in mind for later. Mixam reaches level 47 and learns the full recovery spell Valor. Next battle gets Agaro to level 44. In the healing room I fight my first Gorgon. Now up them stairs into this beast of the floor. West a bit and north up the first ladder. East of the next ladder for the first chest. Then up the ladder and in the door to another room. In the room it leads to I go north through a door and north through another to reach the second chest. Back through the door and west some more to go through another door to a tunnel with a third chest inside. Other end of the tunnel puts me out on the west end of the main room. There's a chest here and a door to a room with another chest. Out of the room, down 2 ladders to reach a 7th chest in the southwest corner, then down to the bottom level, east to the centre, up 2 long ladders to the east and into a door that leads to my 8th chest. Back out and east and down a ladder, getting 2 more chests on the way. Past the door I go west, past 1 ladder and up the second to find my 11th chest. Further west and up a ladder to go into a room leading to 2 more chests. Then back out, back down the ladder and west to my 14th chest. Then up a ladder to the 15th chest, east, passing a ladder and up the next. All the way east, passing another ladder to my 16th. Then up the previous ladder I skipped to a room with 2 chests and an item hidden in poison. Then finally to the other door I skipped to make my realisation. First fight here is against a Mad Cleric. I'm still surprised I'm this late in the game and still getting new non-palette swapped enemies. These get Lufia to level 46. The first chest is a Stone Cure. The next fight is against my first Red Skulls, and the next encounter is simply named Dragon. The second chest is a High Magic and the third is Sonic Heals. 4th chest is a Smoke Ball. The 5th in the small room is a High Potion. The 6th chest is an Antidote. The 7th chest in the poison-filled room is a Great Potion. The one to the east of that room is a Miracle. Then Jerrin reaches level 42 and learns Rally. The chest further east is a Gloom Arrow. The next is a Mind Guard. The 2 in the next inner room are a Big Arrow and X Potion. The chest out of the room and next to it is a Dragon Arrow. The next one up that ladder is an X-Bomb. The next chest is X Arrows. The final treasures are a Miracle, Miracle in the Poison, and a last Miracle. In the same battle, Mixam reaches level 48 and Agaro level 45. I go through that final door, see a locked door behind it, and realise I'm a fucking idiot. I'm gonna have to go through this whole thing again once I have the key. So it's back to Erebus to heal and do the correct cave like I was intending to first time. First, east across a bridge and north across another to the first chest. East across another bridge, past some stairs and down a ladder to go west to my second chest. Then southeast to a third chest. Down a ladder and east to a 4th and then turn west for the 5th. Northwest from there and up a ladder, then south to a 6th chest and west to the southwest corner for the 7th. North, passing under the first bridge to a room in the northwest corner with the 8th chest and then south and northeast to the final chest. After that I take the stairs I passed in the northeast corner down. The first chest has a High Potion inside, the second has a High Bomb, third is a Gloom Arrow, Lufia reaches level 47, 4th is a Smoke Ball and 5th is a Magic Guard, a Mystery Pin in the 6th and a Zircon Sword in the 7th. The one in the corner room holds a white ring which goes to Mixam for a slight hit to a few stats in exchange for even more attack than the Wave Ring. The last chest is a Great Potion, then down to the basement. I go northwest to 2 doors and take the eastern one. I follow the path around to a door to a teleporter to the first chest. Back to the doors and I take the western one. I continue west, go down 2 ladders and then northwest to the second chest, then down 2 more ladders to a third. Back up 2 ladders and east and down another. Past the door to the southwest corner to find a 4th chest. Then in the door to press a switch that changes the destination of the teleporter I first used. I go back and take it to a 5th chest and the stairs to the dungeon's remaining 3. First battle on this floor gets Jerin to level 43. The chest past the teleporter is a mind potion. Aguro soon after reaches level 46. The second chest is a miracle, as is the third. Mixam then reaches level 49. The fourth chest is a third miracle. Lufia reaches level 48 on the way back to the teleporter after flipping the switch. The fifth chest after the rerouted teleporter gets me a spell potion. The final 3 down the stairs are the Glasdar Key, a power potion and a Gloomguard. That's 2 of these Glasdar dungeons done, just 1 more, plus the repeated journey through one of them to get to it. While going back through the cave to Glasdar Tower, I decided to do a bit of grinding in that room with the healing tiles to get Jerin to level 44, since she was so close already. Then a couple fights later, Aguro reaches level 47. I make it back to the locked door and use the Glasdar Key, and outside is the Glasdar Tower with nothing left to keep me out. Well, there's a random encounter right outside that gets Mixam to level 50, but after that, there's nothing. This place is big. The first floor is a straight walk north, but there is a chest each in little rooms to the east and west. On the second floor, I go east and into a room for a third chest, back out and north to a door to a long horizontal corridor. There I move west and into the first door I reach, back out onto another part of floor 2. There I go east into a room with another chest, and then west, south and east to the stairs to floor 3. The first floor's western chest is a high potion, while the eastern one is an X-bomb. The first chest on the second floor is a big arrow. Lufia reaches level 49. The other in the second room has X arrows inside, up to floor 3. I start with going west into a room with a chest, then back to the start and east into a room with 2 more chests. Back out and north from the stairs through a door into another corridor to go west through a door into another room. Southeast a little to another chest, and then southwest through a door and north to the stairs to floor 4. The first chest I open has a revive inside, then Jerin reaches level 45. The next 2 chests are a power gourd and mind potion. The last chest is a revive, Aguro reaches level 48 and it's up to floor 4. North through a door to the first chest, then southeast through a door, west to a second chest, south through another door, west and north through another door to 2 more chests. Back to the northern half and through the door east of the first chest and even some more through another door. That takes me to another corridor where I keep moving east into the next room. Here I go southwest to the stairs to floor 5 with 1 last chest on the way. The first chest is an X-bomb. The first new enemy facing this place is the Electromaz. The second chest is a Gloom Arrow, then another new enemy in the Whirlwind. The next 2 chests are a Gloom Ring and a Miracle. Then another new enemy, the Fire Wheel. These get Mixam to level 51. Another new enemy in the Water Spout. All the new enemies faced here so far have all been representations of the game's elements instead of just new monsters. The last chest on this floor is an Antidote. Lufia reaches level 50 and next comes floor 5. In this room I go northwest from the stairs to a door into another corridor, then east into a room with 2 smaller rooms inside it. The eastern one takes me to a room with healing tiles. The western one has some stairs to floor 6. Floor 6 has 3 switches. The 8 possible combinations of pressed and not pressed switches determines where the teleporter behind them will take me. First, with middle and right pressed, I'm taken to a room on floor 5 with a chest inside holding a miracle. The door in this room leads to a room where Jerin reaches level 46. She learns Valor, getting every party member every spell they can learn. The door in that room leads to a corridor that leads to another room with 10 more chests. A power potion, spell potion, mind potion, miracle, 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 great potion, speed potion, and revive. Back a couple rooms is a hole that drops me down to floor 4, because floor 6's teleporter is one way. On the way back, Aguro reaches level 49, and Mixam reaches level 52. Back on floor 6, I next try just the right switch down to be sent to a chest surrounded by a pit on floor 2. This one has a stun arrow. That is not worth having to walk all the way back up from floor 1. Lufia reaches level 51, Jerin reaches level 47, and Aguro reaches level 50 on the way back up again. Next I press no switches to be sent right next to where I was sent to floor 2 last time, but here the chest has a miracle. On the way back up again, Mixam reaches level 53. All of the combinations take me to places I've already been, except for one. Pressing only the middle switch and taking the teleporter takes me to a room leading north into a corridor that leads into a room with stairs in the south that take me to the top floor. Once I get there, a monster descends. He is Nazebe, an agent of Daos, here to stop us from reaching Doom Island. Nazebe has 4,980 HP and no weaknesses. As usual, power up Mixam and Aguro to have them throw out normal attacks, reduce Nazebe's defense, have Jerin heal when needed, and Lufia cast Thunder. Since Jerin has the spell Trick, she can also power up the attackers without relying on power guards. Nazebe uses the long outdated Do spell on the party for just around 20 damage. Meanwhile my party is starting off around 850 to 900 damage a turn. He also has Spark, which is more damaging than Dew, but not by much. Blast is a little better, dealing almost 100 to the guys, but less to Lufia and barely anything to Jerin. Water hurts me less than Blast, but more than the other spells. Then he comes with Glacier with comparable damage to Blast. He also tries Succumb, which manages to kill Jerin, but a couple turns later he's defeated. Lufia reaches level 52, Aguro reaches level 51, and Jerin level 48. Nazebe doesn't know how he'll explain his loss to Daos until he decides to bring him Erim as a gift. He casts a spell on her that has the dual blade ringing. He releases Lufia's true power, killing Nazebe and injuring everyone else. Lufia is in disbelief for what she has just done, with Daos' voice confirming that Erim's power is free. The returning memories have her mistake Mixam for Maxim in a dialogue box that really shows how my name for this guy was a bad idea. This was Daos' plan all along. Allow the party to obtain the dual blade, which secretly restores Lufia's memories as Erim due to Mixam and Maxim's similar energies stirring the memories of her past life's battle against Maxim. He tells Lufia he can sense her memories fading and being replaced with Erim's. He tells her to take the dual blade and bring it to him. Lufia tries to refuse, but Daos threatens her with inevitably being killed by Mixam once he awakens and Erim returns completely, telling her to forget about Mixam and return to him. Lufia eventually gives in and takes the dual blade, teleporting to Doom Island. Another Sinistral tells Daos to kill the party now, but Daos knows that trying that before Lufia is replaced by Erim completely will put regaining her at risk. Aguro and Jerin wake up first and they wake up Mixam. They then realise that both Lufia and the dual blade are gone. Meanwhile, Lufia reaches the other Sinistrals in the Fortress of Doom. Daos asks for the dual blade and Lufia asks why Daos didn't kill her instead when he knows she could kill him with it. Daos responds that he knows Erim wouldn't do that. The dual blade is put down and Daos destroys it. Doom Island then floats away from Glasdar Tower. Jerin says that it's moving southwest. So Lufia has left the party and I looked up when I get her back to find I won't get her back at a point that will allow me to fully level her. So I reset the game. This does mean needing to repeat all of Glasdar Tower, which I do off screen, but it's the only way to fully level up Lufia. But first I have something else to do, reobtaining the Dragon Eggs. Their new locations after being scattered are always the same, thankfully. First is in Alekia Castle. I forgot to fill the princess in on what I found in Sharon, so she's only now learning about Gaddis showing up there. And because we were intended to see this much earlier, Mixam talks as if he doesn't know about the remaining Sinistral's revivals yet. The first Dragon Egg is in the northeastern room of the castle's first floor. The second is in one of the chests on the top floor of the northwest tower. The third is in the little warehouse in Belgen. The fourth is in an elevated part of the bottom floor of the southwest cave. The fifth is in the one chest inside the cave to Mars. The sixth is in the southwest corner of the first floor of the Elba Island cave. In the cave under Ring Island, the seventh is in the northeast between all the currents. The last one is in the centre north of the middle floor of the oil cave. But before I drop them off, I have to clear out Glasdar Tower's items again because one of the third sets of eggs is in one of those chests. So I need to empty said chest first to avoid losing the original treasure. Once that's done, I leave without killing Nazebe again. I return to the Dragon Shrine and hand over the eggs for another Might Shield. This one I give to Aguro. Now to get them all again. First is in the throne room of Sharon Castle. Second is in the first chest in the East Cave. Third is in the basement of the big kitchen in the middle of Leiden. Fourth is in the 7th level of the Old Cave. Fifth is in the first floor of the Purple Newt Cave. Sixth is through the teleporter in the cave north of Glasdar. Seventh in the west of the cave to Glasdar Tower's second floor. And the final Dragon Egg is in the Glasdar Tower treasure room. Back to the Dragon Shrine and I get myself a third Might Shield for Mixam. No point getting the Might Bow, Artea's bow is still great. No point raising levels, I can do that myself. That's it for the Dragon Eggs too, no more are scattered. It was at least a little fun returning to early game areas I hadn't seen in ages. And now for the final grind. I use the cave to Glasdar Tower's healing room for the enemies that give so much experience next to healing tiles. So while that goes on, I'll quickly talk about the Lufia is Erim thing. I wish it could have been a genuine surprise for me, but after I played that hour or so 20 years ago, I wound up looking up the game on the internet and having that twist along with the entire ending spoiled for me. It was deliberate though. Those first 2 years having the internet at that age, I was very impatient and wanted to know how things would go. Waiting for Dragon Ball's Boo Arc to air in the UK? Look it up. Shaolin Showdown Season 2 hadn't started airing yet? TV told me. And that went for a lot of games too that I got stuck on. Would look at what to do next and then just keep reading to the end. I do sometimes regret it a little now, but at that age, getting to see what was coming would get me excited to experience it for myself. During my grind, one of the enemies drops a Might Helmet. I didn't catch which one. But if you didn't do the Tower of Light early and missed that one, you can at least grind rare drops for another. And when I switched to the cave north of Glasdar, one eventually drops a Might Sword, the actual strongest weapon in the game. 80 points stronger than the Dual Blade, it makes losing that sword to the Sinistrals no longer any loss. Eventually, of the next day of grinding at increased speed, Agaro becomes the first party member to reach level 99. Mixam is next, then Lufia, and finally Jerrin. Yet another off-screen climbing of Glasdar Tower and once again wiping out Nazabi, now doing anywhere from 1100 to 1300 damage a turn. And all that happens again. Lufia buggers off with a Dual Blade, but who gives a shit anymore when I have the Might Blade? Jerrin said Doom Island moved southwest, and it did. All the way to the other end of the world. Glasdar Tower is in the northwest, while Doom Island is now north of Aris on the southeastern continent. As I approach it, I get to fly around the island close up. I have to land in front of the shrine and go through it. It leads into the teleporting shrine hub I've been to before. The old man heals me for the final battle, and I can now exit through the back. What follows is a short journey north up several mountains to reach the Fortress of Doom. As the music from when we were here as Maxim returns, I regret to say that travel through here will be very truncated in my narration because the layout is still the exact same. It is great to hear this song again though. We do have some new enemies though, like the Mega Atlas. Even the chests are in the same place as they were with Maxim. The western room in the entrance has a power potion. The basement has a mind potion, speed potion, and great potion. Next new enemy is a gold golem, and then the Act Demon. The chest in the entrance floor's eastern room is a spell potion. The western room of the second room has a power potion. The eastern one has a spell potion. Next new enemy is the Act Hydra. The two chests in the back of the third floor are a miracle and a second miracle. As I near the top, I get a battle against my first Act Dragon. And then the last three chests in the game are on the fifth floor. A miracle, and one last miracle. I then quickly run out to save the openings of those chests. I get back and take the teleporter to return to the room where Maxim's party fought the Sinistrals a century earlier. Mixam finds the remains of the Dual Blade. Garez, Amon, and Daos show up to mock them over it. Mixam demands Lufia back, but Daos wonders if that's what Lufia wants now. Lufia then appears in front of the party. She ignores Mixam's calls and goes to stand behind Daos. But despite being in pieces, the Dual Blade starts ringing again. It still has a connection to Mixam's energy and uses it to rebuild itself. They're overjoyed, but the Might Sword is still better so it doesn't really matter anymore. It even forces itself back into Mixam's equipment. That thing's old news, get it the fuck out of there. With the superior sword back on, I take a step towards Daos, only for Garez to get in my way. The first Sinistral we met and the one that kicked the adventure off will be the first to fall. Garez has 4200 HP and a thunder weakness. Of course, with Lufia standing over there refusing to help out, I've lost access to all the thunder spells that would annihilate him. Even without Lufia, my setup isn't too different. Jerrin powers up the attackers and focuses on healing. The only difference is without Lufia I have to use Mixam's first turn to cast Drain and weaken him. Garez has the attack Destroy, which would be a huge loss of health if my party still had the HP of the level 50 somethings the game expected you to be for this. But at level 99 it's just a mild threat. But even at level 99 with the best weapons in the game, I'm still doing less than I was expecting. But even then, about 800 a turn is very good and he's finished off quickly. I take another step forward and Amon, the least interesting Sinistral with nothing memorable about him, decides to die next. Garez is the one we follow for so long, Daos is the leader and main villain, and Erim is secretly one of our party members without even knowing it. Amon just exists. For the next couple minutes at least. He has 4000 HP and a fire weakness. The setup is different for once. I cast Mirror to reflect his multi-target Sunder spell back at him, so his one casting can hit him multiple times. I don't even need to use Jerrin's powerful fire spells to exploit his weakness, I just let him blow himself up while Mixam and Agaro give him a beating. No point talking about the rest of his moveset, it's not worth the effort. Before taking my last step forward, I finally start using my massive stockpile of miracles to fully heal the party. I'm certain all of these are from chests. I never bought any and just hoarded what I found. Daos can sense Maxim's energy in his descendant and wonders if he can actually wield the Dual Blade. Keep up, Grandad, I haven't been using it. Daos has 4200 HP and no weaknesses. Exactly the same strategy I use on Amon. He fights in the same way, casting a load of group spells that I can just reflect with Mirror. The difference is he has a higher resistance to the spells he casts when they hit him back. He also uses different spells, but they don't matter. The battle takes a little longer than with Amon because his higher defense means most of my attacks do about 100 less damage than they would do to Amon. But he still falls like the rest. The Sinistrals were merely wounded from their battle to try and combine their powers in the same way they tried with Maxim and friends at the start of the game. But once again, the dual blade interferes and Aeryn's powers start to become unstable. Lufia breaks from the group and Mixam checks on her to learn that she still remembers him. The remaining Sinistrals don't stop and they combine into the final boss, Gardaos. Gardaos has 6500 HP and a Thunder weakness, and I have my Thundercaster back for this fight. And that is why I had to reset to level grind when I did. Lufia only rejoins for the final battle, so there was no other time to level her up. I still have Jerrin focus on spreading Mirror around while Aguro and Mixam attack. Lufia gets to cast Thunder on him to take out almost a 12th of his HP with one casting. Add Aguro and Mixam's attacks to that, I'm doing almost 15% of his maximum HP in a turn. He has pretty much the same selection of spells regular Daos did. There is one called Figual, but I didn't see what it did because they were all reflected and he seems to be immune to it. But more important is Lufia's Thunder, which just keeps doing more and more damage. 400 something the first turn, 500 something the next, then 600 something the turn after that. There are turns where she's out-damaging Mixam and Aguro combined. But despite her contributions, Aguro sneaks in the final hit to take him down. Oh, the game's Conquered counter hasn't gone up, that's weird. With the Sinistrals dead, Lufia asks Mixam to hold up the dual blade. She says that since she was once Aeryn, it makes her a Sinistral too, and like how the Sinistrals are Mixam's enemy, those with Maxim's blood are hers. Mixam rejects that she can be anyone but Lufia, but that doesn't matter, as the other Sinistrals can be resurrected again and again as long as the one with Aeryn's power lives. Mixam begs her not to make him kill her as she tries to provoke him. She demands Mixam kill her, but the dual blade gets involved again. It attacks Lufia on its own, and everyone is sent flying around just as Maxim's party did back then. Mixam finds her on the bridge. She says she was afraid. She suddenly had all of Aeryn's memories enter her mind at once, trying to push out everything she remembered of her own life. That's why she left the party. But when she arrived at the fortress, she realised that she could still remember him. While Mixam tells her not to speak, she lets him know that the 16 years she lived as Lufia were far happier than the untold years she was Aeryn. She only regrets that she won't get to spend more time with Mixam. Mixam refuses to let her die, promising to her that they'll always be together. But then Lufia goes silent. Doom Island starts to fall again and the bridge starts to collapse, dropping Lufia into the darkness. Aguro prevents Mixam from meeting the same fate as his ancestor by dragging him back. He and Jerrin force him to escape with them. Meanwhile, those at Fredaria can see Doom Island falling, realising that this means the party was successful. Flake, the Elder of Aris, has a better view up on the Tower of Grief, considering Doom Island is directly north of it. Artea can feel that the battle he took part in 100 years ago is finally over. He tells his late friends as such. This is also the first time anyone has even mentioned Selan's name after her death. Good for her. Ainea and her uncle, upon learning this, pay their respects to Guy's grave. Meanwhile, Mixam and the others finally make their escape on the Falcon. Once they reach land, Aguro and Jerrin show relief over their escape, but Mixam walks off in silence. Jerrin tries to stop him, but Aguro tells her that while their journey is over with the deaths of the Sinistrals, things aren't over for Mixam yet. Jerrin wonders if this is how they have to go their separate ways, as Mixam keeps moving. 1 year later, we see Aguro, back with the army in Lorbinia, skip out on training the recruits as he has more important business. He meets up with Jerrin at the dock. She wonders what happened to Mixam within the last year. Aguro has no idea. He checked in on Alekia to find he hasn't been home yet. But both are certain they'll see him again. But speaking of a year passing, Aguro gets more serious and has something to tell Jerrin. Since Jerrin has no home and nowhere to fit in with her being half-elf, Aguro has been letting her live with him. And he wants her to move out because she's cramping his style. He's only back with the useless army he resents because he can't afford to feed both of them otherwise. He can't even get a girlfriend because he's got this kid. Well, she's not really a kid, she just looks exactly like a kid, and he's definitely not in a parental role here, so what's going on there, living in the same house as him? And that's bound to attract some questions from anyone new. Jerrin says he'd still be single even without her in his house, and the screen fades out as they continue the childish insults. I liked their dynamic in the end. It amused me and gave Aguro a personality. Meanwhile, Mixam returns to Aris, where Lufia's beloved Prithia flowers bloom. As he checks on the fields, a familiar looking face is there. She asks Mixam if he's new here. Mixam says he's a traveller. Lufia wishes she could travel, but she's never been away from Aris. But then she introduces herself as Lufia, living here with her grandfather. Mixam thought it was just someone who looked like her and is taken back. She calls over her grandfather, who turns out to be Flake. She introduces Mixam and the two play along as if they haven't met before to avoid confusing her. She wants Mixam to stay in their house so he can tell her stories of his travels, and the Elder accepts. When Lufia goes off to make tea, Mixam asks Flake what's going on. Flake confirms that the girl is definitely Lufia. Doom Island was close to Arras when it fell, and so she washed up there almost dead, but managed to survive. However, she no longer has the ability to use magic. There's no Erin left of her now, she's just a normal girl. Flake assumed this was an effect of the Dual Blade's final attack on her. But it removed her memory, not just as Erin, but of the previous 16 years as Lufia too. She even had to be taught how to speak from scratch. But in that case, Mixam wonders why Flake wants him to spend so much time with her. Flake himself doesn't really know, and before he can go deeper, Lufia calls him in for tea. Flake asks why she made cinnamon tea, something she doesn't normally do. Any other guest just gets normal tea for her, but she just felt like doing something different this time. Flake teases her, pointing out how Mixam is the same age as her, so of course she wants to do something special for him. Lufia tells Mixam to ignore what Flake had just suggested, but Flake continues to tease her over having a crush until she goes back inside. Watching that play out finally has it sink into Mixam that this is Lufia. Flake does warn him that without her old memories she may as well be a different person, but Mixam is just happy to see that she is alive. The loss of her memories of him may make things difficult, but Mixam is certain they'll be able to make new ones, as the game ends on them going inside for tea. I liked the ending. It does a good job looking like it's going to end in tragedy just like the prologue, before showing things didn't go as badly this time. And it's nice to see the contrast between the more matured Mixam and this new Lufia compared to how their relationship was portrayed at the start of the game. Let's just hope that Mixam having all this knowledge of Lufia that Lufia herself doesn't have doesn't cause them any problems in the future. And Aguro and Jerry making each other's lives miserable is funny. After the credits I get my stats, showing completion time, game overs, individual character deaths, 655 out of 655 treasures and 131 out of 136 hidden items found. And there's no way of knowing from just looking which ones I have and haven't found yet, so I have to check all 136 of them. Okay, so I'm missing 5 hidden items. First one is an Alekia, in the flowers next to the guardhouse, a power potion, and a revive in the castle on the shelf behind the captain. Good, that's 2 already. I visit every location in order until I get back to the old cave. I miss an X potion in the poison swamp on the 2nd level, and a spell potion in the poison swamp on the 4th level, just 1 left. As my quick run through takes me back to Medan, I realise, oh shit, what if it's the one missable item? I can't remember. Thankfully, it's an X potion in the fields outside the castle. And with that, Lufia and the Fortress of Doom is complete. So despite my complaints, I did like this game. I certainly wouldn't call it one of the greats of the Super Nintendo, but I did like it. It has a large enough world with a lot to explore, and despite how simple it was, I enjoyed the story. The Dysfunctional Party actually made this one of the most enjoyable times I've had recapping a game's story. Usually I'm too insecure over whether I'm doing the story justice, but here the script just came naturally to me. And of course there's that prologue that stuck with me for so many years. And while basic, the battle system gets the job done and there's little frustration once you get a full party. I only had 3 real complaints, but they were huge enough to really drag the game's overall ranking down, and they all really come under the same umbrella. The games need to drag things out. Whether that's your slow walking speed in dungeons, the insane encounter rate, or you wasting turns attacking empty space if the original targeted enemy was killed. One of those would be a problem, but all 3 together feed into each other for a massive source of frustration. The game would have been long enough without these things and would be much more enjoyable for it. And this is from someone who generally likes the gameplay loop that comes from random encounters. It was too much here, even for me. Ages ago, I once called Phantasy Star 2 a game I enjoyed despite its best efforts to make me hate it, and I feel that could be used to describe this game, but to a lesser extent. It lacks the pointlessly labyrinthine dungeons with several time-wasting dead ends of that game, and this game's cast had more personality. But there's a good game here, and it's been held back from being, well, not great, but quite a bit gooder, were it not for the unfun time-wasting elements. I would say that if you were interested in playing this game, I would not recommend trying it out on the original hardware. Either use an emulator to speed through the random encounters, or see if there's a fan-made patch out there that cuts the encounter rate. Let's hope that sequel irons out those problems.